All right, welcome back, everybody. Good to have you here. Awesome. Paul Tranny with the one and only Jesse Thomas and Taylor Crisdale from JESS3.
Hey.
Hello. For day 3. Ready? You came to this is our Friday. You got the Hawaiian shirt on to prove it. I like it.
Aloha.
It's looking good. I love it. Parts are because of the green.
Yeah, that's cool. I like
Oh,
that.
is it? Oh, that is cool.
So you can see my hand.
It's like some
No,
glitch
that's not
art.
how it works. But good to have you here, everybody. We will get you guys diving into day 3 for basically making infographics, graphics that pop, because you're really all about eyeballs, right? Getting
Yep.
people
Yeah,
to look
exactly,
at things, work an agency that essentially focuses on, getting people to look
And
at
trying to
stuff.
integrate illustration and art into the layouts as much as possible, right? Because
Yeah.
infographics can so often be very basic, for a
Yeah.
good reason as well. But just our slice of this is often sort of on the visual storytelling kind of direction. We still do
Yeah.
traditional infographics, but today we're going to do a bit
lot
of
of
both.
it pushes that way. Yeah, we are
This
going
is
to do a little
good.
bit of both. It's always
like-
a little bit of both. It's the
Yeah.
best.
Yeah.
I like it. I like what I see there on your screen. This is
Yeah.
good. Ooh, battle of the video
So
games.
right, remember yesterday we ended. Remember the
Exactly.
the wireframe we had created was slightly similar in organization, but the topic has sort of slightly changed. But,
Yeah, so we kind of fleshed this out into the most successful video games like over these decades. So we've got like pre-70s, 70s
Ooh.
through those. And then we've got some placeholders there. And then a little bit of info, just breaking it out in the center. About battle royale games that has been kind of like all the rage now. So it's kind of like blast from the past type things at the top, and then a little bit of modern in the middle. Just with them absolutely.
What would be a
destroying the
battle
market.
royale like example of a game there? Would it be like your
Super
like
Smash Brothers.
It's more like, there's
Fallout?
Fortnite.
Fortnite, yeah.
And then there's PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. So if you've ever seen, I think it was Battle Royale in about year 2000 came out. It's a Japanese film, I believe, and it's kind of off that term. It's like Hunger Games, the whole like plopped in an arena, and then you got to survive to the last man. So
Gotcha.
that's kind of like where the term came from.
Gotcha. That does make sense. That's kind of what I was thinking of. But I have not. Did you guys play Fallout or Fortnite? Sorry.
I don't play Fortnite myself. No, I play a lot of video games.
I like
I know some of these
retro.
guys
I like
do.
retro games
Yeah.
more.
These guys do. They come in here
Yeah,
all blurry
yeah.
eyed. They've been up since 4 a.m. just playing
Yeah.
Fortnite. I don't really know, but. So,
Yeah.
anyways, shout out if you guys are interested in video games.
Retro.
What's your current?
It's all about retro.
What's your current? I don't know. Poison is these days in terms of games.
Yeah, mentioned Fortnite, and everyone's going to jump in saying that
Yeah.
PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds is better, and then it'll just all kick off. So we've also at the bottom just kind of fleshed out these a little bit more. So we've got the tested time. We're going to be remixing these a little bit too, just with the longest lasting ones. So we've still got Space Invaders around. We've still got Pac-Man. Mario's still kicking, obviously. Top 3 most profitable games. So that's just overall money that they've made since the beginning. So Space Invaders, Pac-Man, and then Street Fighter 2. So Street Fighter 2's in there because I think it all includes arcade machines.
Okay.
So it's like everything. It's not just consoles like you'd think about now. It's like how much money is the old arcade machine, like the old races, like NASCAR games. Those have been around for maybe like 15 years.
Yeah, that's true.
So
And then we're going to be jumping into snackables. Do I set the scene with some
yeah,
just these stuff?
yeah. Or no, yeah, you could. Yeah, go.
Or just jump in? Yeah.
Yeah, you're the one. You're the only one driving, so you have all the work to do.
Yeah, exactly.
So just to give you an overview of snackables, right? So if you look on the screen here, notice this infographic on the left is super tall, right? And there is a purpose for those super tall infographics, right? They're great on blogs. They were great on Pinterest when Pinterest was like a really, really important kind of platform to be focusing on, not as much these days. So there's a lot of flaws with these tall infographic formats. You'll notice on the right, there's what looks like a slice next to it. And we're gonna sort of talk about this idea of so these are snackable graphics versus the full meal. So that's the full meal on the left, snackable on the right. But how do we come up with what goes there? Because if you're scrolling, so just sort of, these are some of the wireframes for this work.
Just to set the scene, with an with a snackable, you basically want to take out one chunk. So you might be talking about, hang on, I'll just outline this. So that's, that, if you could consider that a snackable, is like a lot of information. You wouldn't actually like consider that a snackable.
Just take it over. No, but so like copy that and move it over to the.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Yeah, that's and it's
So what we're doing
different
here, right,
format.
is so in this main infographic, just zoom back out real quick so we can sort of talk more about it. Just back up here.
Yeah.
So in that main infographic, delete that box for me. At the top, we've got this main hero graphic. Okay, so that, even though it does have a lot in it, will be the first slice we take. The battle royale piece.
I've got to kind of
is
indicate it.
that. Well, you don't need that there because it's obvious. So the battle royale bit has a title, has its own information. It's self-contained. So that will be our second slice.
Yeah.
The test of time is an obvious choice. So this should be obvious, by the way, right? So these are the obvious choices. And what we're going to do next, once we, well, I want you to
It's
wait.
kind
So
of just showing. I'm going to pull them
Yeah,
over
go-
now. Yeah.
Yep.
What would you like to pull over? This bottom right.
We'll start with the top. So resize this here. Yep.
So a snackable, we'd probably use one slice though. We'd be like
No,
doing
use all
a
slices. Yep.
370.
Would
Yep,
you
use all
are you
those.
so are you're not really adhering to any, you're kind of adhering to just a smaller size but nothing specific right now.
No, so they're digestible chunks, right? So
Yeah.
we'll take a step back. So zoom back out again, because what I want you to grab is like grab that chunk, check it over, grab that chunk, check it over.
Oh, I get what you
Yeah.
mean.
Like, is that a specific size for those other little artboards?
Squares.
Squares are good.
So
square.
remember, one of the key problems with uploading tall graphics. So Facebook has become #1 focus, right? Facebook used to be one of many things. Twitter, blogs, Pinterest used to be just as big of a platform for graphics years ago. Facebook truly has taken over. Instagram has also risen up this priority chart. And so when we think of the importance of what's happened with Instagram, just to start with that, here you've got a mobile audience that is forced to view things that are square. One of the really important things, though, about the Achilles heel of that is that Instagram initially, you couldn't zoom in on your mobile device. They like literally didn't, so you were stuck with this square mobile view that sort of had to be viewed.
It was so annoying you couldn't zoom in.
Right.
That
They've
was
recently
so
changed that, and they've also changed now that you don't need to have the square proportions, and you
That's
can have
true.
multiple images. So things have changed. But one of the reason that Snapchat decided to choose square as a format is that by default, when you're creating thumbnails, you either have to choose between circle, which is essentially a square, or some version of a rectangle. And over the web's and social proliferation, we saw a number of these different things happening, how they resize things. Sometimes, if it's a tall graphic, for instance, are they cropping just the top for the preview, or is it the middle? These weird things start happening. So what's great about snackable graphics, though, is whether they're being resized or not, they're meant to be readable as far away as possible. So for instance, that first sort of inclination to grab that whole chunk, that's pushing the limits on what you would consider a snackable graphic, but that's still draft one to drop into a wireframe.
So it'd be more something along the lines of like this
Exactly.
level of content.
That's exactly right. Yep.
So this brings up the point that pulling a chunk out doesn't keep the context of what it is. So you need to like reformat it. You need to kind of remix it. Like you've got the content there. Like you get the idea of everything when you look at the graphic. But if you pluck something out, while it might be good content, you lose the context almost immediately. So you need to remix it a little bit, get some maybe get the title back in there.
Well,
maybe
and there's
rename
two
it.
titles now, right? So you've got the title, perhaps, of the report, if you want to call it the Battle of the Video Games infographic. That's essentially the master title. But then you've got these sort of section titles, right? So the titling is something to think about. The attribution line at the bottom, these are kind of some of the key things that are the only things that need to be on the screen. Because remember, this is the life raft approach to chucking things off. You don't want anything you don't need, because it's all taking away from that 2 seconds you're going to have somebody to want to share it.
So that might be like modern games, like you'd give them like.
Well, a bit of it would have the 90s
appropriate.
number in it, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it could be like 90s Naughties.
90s and oddies.
What do you call it? Naughties?
No, what did you call it?
You call it
We
oddies.
call it naughties.
Not what? I
Like
think we
not.
Yeah, I think we should
Not
call it
is how you
naughties.
pronounce the zero.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 I like it's naughties.
Naughties.
It sounds funny.
And then add like a line at the bottom. It's like lorem ipsum, blah blah blah, some attribution
Yeah.
of where the titles came from.
It's really interesting. I know Victoria this morning. She's actually been getting more into the habit of making images that are a little taller on Instagram because they take up more real estate, so her stuff gets noticed more.
Absolutely. No, and that's a brilliant. That's the perspective to have. Is this is like hacking the news feed, and of course building on that, you want to think about like other image formats, whether it's animated GIFs or video. The other thing I want to bring up though is all of you, anybody who's got time to pay attention to do this, that wants to make more money or get more people to view your stuff,
Yeah.
think about how powerful those Russian Facebook ads were. Okay, it's for years we've been using Facebook ads to promote our work, any kind of ad we possibly can, to drive eyeballs to our work. So we target brands like Facebook and Google and all the other, like regular brands as well. But that's, I think, sometimes that's a refreshing strategy to hear as a designer, is that you can take something like $100 a month and only have your work show up to people that work in Mountain View that are 30 to 50, that are women, I don't know, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And before you know it, you realize that you can invest money in having people see your work. And before this came along, it was actually quite tricky for designers to advertise themselves. Because you have these books, these annuals you can sort of be in. It's actually quite a lot of money.
Wow.
It can be $500, it can be $1,500.
And you're talking about some of these books, for instance. This is
Well-
the one we're going to give away today, by the way.
Well, this would be a book where you would be honored to be
really
chosen
cool.
to be in. But they have these other, these like black book type services where it's like you're paying money to
Yeah.
list yourself in.
Yeah.
I would rather you spent that money to target the company you really want to work for. Make that ad say, "We love brand name." That's what we do. That works.
Yeah.
People screenshot those ads.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
It is good. And Instagram's killing it lately.
Instagram.
Well, Instagram and Facebook, which
Killing
is
it.
now the
Yeah.
same
Killing
company.
I think it's number 1 and 2 photo sharing sites on the web. Facebook's number 1, Instagram is number 2. Photo sharing sites in the world.
So Flickr kind of like dropped off, right? Like
Flickr did kind of drop
So,
off. They
Isaac
jumped
brings
back.
up a good question. There actually is a cropping tool in Illustrator CC now, which is new. It's like
cropping?
only less than 6 months old for cropping. If you
Yeah.
wanted to crop,
If you want to get rid of
yeah,
your
like
images,
for
everything off artboard disappears. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's more like if you import like all your reference photos that you have that we might see later, you can just select it and it has
Oh, kind
to
of
be
mask it.
embedded.
I guess I would have
so what
masked
you
it or something
traditionally kind of
before.
like do
Yeah,
a clipping mask
but
for.
what it does is it gets rid of all that data instead of just doing a clipping mask.
yeah.
Oh,
'cause
like
it always
right.
kind of
Yeah,
annoyingly,
select it.
Right.
like it kind of sticks around, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
I get what you mean. It gets in
crop
the way
it, so
sometimes. Yeah.
that's what I've been doing. And actually,
cool,
what's
I
funny is I do that for all my reference photos in Photoshop. Is I'll crop them down because sometimes I do grab them from the web and they're huge and a bunch
Sure.
of white space.
Yeah.
Does it keep the data there? Like, can you reverse it?
I should know this. And I don't know if it keeps the full file.
Okay.
So do one thing for me there, bro. Let's like duplicate this one so we can talk about the difference of like 3 versus 5 kind of thing.
Oh yeah, totally.
Duplicate that whole layout. Just
So this is fun. I like
Right.
working in Illustrator. You're like
So-
moving
So
like a demon.
Faster.
what we're trying to show you is sort of the creative process for how you start with this tall graphic and make these kind of smart choices. And I want to remind you that, again, the first thing you do, because we're starting with the basics and we're going to go a bit more complex. So the first thing is taking what you've already laid out. You've already laid out 3 things, but the reason we chose 3 things might have been because that's how we wanted the layout to fit for the larger layout, because we had to compromise. For the snackable, though, we might make a version that has 10, and they're just tiny, and we move the
Yeah.
organization over, kind of a thing. And I just want to show you how quickly you can think through these problems. And it's almost like once you realize how this stuff is done, it doesn't even need a term like snackable. It's just like minimal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just like
Yeah.
throw all the stuff you don't need, and give people that red meat they want. These are the chicken drumsticks of of graphics.
These are like
Yeah.
or like the
Try and do 10, so you can get
the French fries or the.
I think,
don't
yeah,
know.
10's a good example of, like, you probably...
But 5 could be too.
Pushing
but,
it.
Well, right, when we're
Yeah.
thinking of numbers, right, 5 is sort of that magic for a snackable. That's and as you get more, you can start stripping things out as well. You don't necessarily need to have you can have more, but then show less.
Yeah.
You can.
Kevin brings up a good point.
Yes.
It's like you could do have multiple images.
No, that's the point, Kevin. Exactly. Exactly. And then one of the things you can do is you can treat that like it's a slideshow. And so sometimes that titling can be quite obnoxious and huge. Here we've actually got it kind of minimal. And of course, this is a wireframe, so it's just the typography. But sometimes the titling can take up 30% of that top area. And what you realize very quickly is that is the first thing that you want to get rid of when you want to be more efficient. So multiple snacks in one post. Oh yeah. So if if the strategy is to share them in a group, you could actually have like a title, literally a title slide. I actually want them. I don't want them on the.
On the angle?
No, I don't
yeah,
want
we
them on
just
the angle.
bump them back.
So yeah.
So we're just going to
And
whip up a
So
chart
you
there.
could just have a title slide, and you could treat because remember, infographics and presentations, these are mother and child, okay? So when you're thinking back to how snackable infographics work in this family, a snackable is a slide of a presentation. This is where I think that metaphor of presentation design, slide design, multi-page design is reinforced, right? Because just like a slide in a presentation, think of it as a self-contained slide in a presentation. So a slide in a presentation, they're actually meant to be self-contained, right? That's why you've got the titling in the corner. Now, if you have numbering, that is a hint that it wasn't meant to be. Page numbering would be a quick reminder that what you're looking at is in context of a larger document. But yeah, slides in a presentation have a lot of these elements already. If you think about a slide in a presentation, you might actually put that copyright attribution on every slide because it's meant to be self-contained. Sometimes
Yeah.
you print it or just see it.
is some of that data real for the?
This is
Street
these ones.
Fighter?
Yeah, these top 3 are all real. So
Street
no
Fighter
metadata.
2, 10.6 billion. I wouldn't have guessed that, but that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's what I was talking about. I think it all includes the arcade machines. So you've got arcade, SNES, and Genesis. So that's what the streams were for the income. So
Yeah.
when have you not seen a Street Fighter 2 machine in an arcade?
So true.
Classic.
Or
absolute
barcade.
classic.
Well, and the big
Arcade
number
these
that I had in my
days.
mind was that
Arcades.
they just had, it was like a $6 billion number for Grand Theft Auto's total. That number stuck with me. So these numbers are bigger than that $6 billion number.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Big numbers.
These are big numbers.
I like
let's not overfocus on
learning.
this.
I mean,
Let's
this
go back
this
and
stuff
start doing
alone, the facts
Yeah, just go back
alone.
over here and do-
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Are
exactly.
fascinating.
Well, no, but that's what's so cool is once you're passionate about something, you're able to never, you're like a community organizer for your video game community or whatever, The hardest part is actually coming up with the content that you're going to put in these things. The design should be really simple, right? It should be like
Yeah,
making
it
a
should be
presentation or a book report or something you just read.
And the content here is like super fun, so the visuals will be a blast.
We didn't
Yeah, so-
we didn't.
jump into it?
What's
Or-
that?
I'll just kind of jump in and overview what we're kind of building
Yeah, no,
towards.
just
Like,
do some stuff. Yeah.
we're going to be doing, like a nice kind of video game style, like almost like arcade machine,
Oh, okay.
neo 80s, and then also
80s.
some Saved by the Bell kind of like 90s patterns and that kind
Love
of
it.
thing. Like 2 of my favorite styles. So
That's awesome.
we'll get stuck
So
into
right,
that.
so
We're just gonna-
brightly colored too, and they're gonna pop.
Yeah. Some fun effects too. Like you get to really like work the effects hard when you're working with like the more old video game stuff, trying to replicate the
Yeah.
like the glows and the graininess and that kind of thing.
That's really hot.
Just jump in style.
I was just gonna. What chart would you like to move forward with?
Just
the
do what
style?
we were starting with,
Like
bro.
this?
Just do a pie chart and a bar chart, and don't over. Just
I was just thinking
The-
of
no,
all
no,
this.
I don't want you to pull that. No, I want you to just
Just the chart.
Just what we
Yeah,
started
we'll do
with,
that then.
And again, so we'll be doing portfolio reviews related to something like this is the goal. So I think that's how we're kind of picking portfolio reviews is sort of more of a graphic creation standpoint
Cool.
for you guys.
We love Behance. We've been hiring people off Behance for
All the time.
what feels like 10 years kind of thing. I mean, Behance is incredible.
Some amazing
There's so
things.
few places in the world like Behance. If you think about what's happened with the web, the web was a place where a designer used to make your own website. That was part of being a designer. You either found somebody that made it for you, or you made it your own, because that's what everybody that was creative was doing in that period of time. As the web became more of a social platform, kind of a software-based kind of experience, and less of these kind of handmade places, things like Behance make more sense. Then as you've got things like Instagram, you got things like Facebook, where the question is like, does a designer need to have all of the above? Do you need to have a Behance portfolio where all of your work is in? Is Instagram another place where you put all your work? But the role of designers making their own website, I find tragic that we no longer make our own websites. A lot of designers are using templatized, gallery-viewed sites.
Yeah.
And it's just like, man, what? The whole point was you used to make it from scratch. The code, you used to put little notes in the code. Like, people are sort of, because it's gotten more complex. And
shifts with budgets too.
And budgets.
Yeah, you got less time. Less time, so you
Yeah.
gotta move
Used to be able to make
faster.
stuff in Dreamweaver,
Oh yeah.
crank it out.
Yeah,
I guess
yeah.
we still have that stuff
Yeah.
because it's just more complex.
You know, and I think the templates have got. I think I don't like using templates, but the templates of like Squarespace. Let's be honest, they make
Those are
pretty
good.
darn good templates that work for a
Well,
lot of
especially for
people.
the stripped down gallery views. Especially
Yeah,
those stripped
that's
down
what I
views.
want. Yeah. WordPress
Is it
was
Cargo
big.
Collective is another one that a lot of people use. Have you ever checked out Cargo Collective? Cargo
Cargo.
Collective.
Is that what? Yeah,
I
that
think it's
might
a
be what
portfolio site.
Victoria-
So I think it's a little bit more
No,
independent.
isn't that the one?
maybe,
No,
Cargo.
isn't Cargo Collective the one where double check this since I mentioned it? But I could have sworn Cargo Collective is a software or like a open source licensable gallery view.
Maybe I wonder if I wonder if anybody knows about Cargo Collective in chat. Love to hear. Might be what Victoria uses. I like what you're doing here with this.
Yeah.
You're doing that.
Yeah, so you kind of just like whipping back to your reference. There's a lot of lines, a lot of like darkness, a lot of like gradients in the background, like slight glows, and then just overlaying really. Like
Yeah.
go crazy with your layers, maybe pull it back after, like go
Yeah.
a bit mental, especially with the old stuff. Like some of it's so over the top, and if you actually did it yourself, you'd think this is way too much, but it's like just kind of the vibe. Like you just keep on layering it up, layering it
That's
up.
what kind of made it fun. It's
Yeah, just-
you could go nuts.
Yeah.
And it's almost like a
Very free.
collage of styles sort of living together.
I love it.
Mm.
It's awesome.
And I like what you're doing here again, like offsetting that stroke.
Yeah, you
Kinda
just
cool.
almost like, so when you're trying to like replicate a style, it's like, because we're thinking of video games, because a lot of the video games you'd be playing them, and what you were looking at, like Atari, it's reflecting onto the glass above it, so you've got like all these secondary images where it's like a lot of it's like glowing separate, and then you kind of like mix in pinball, so you just kind of think of everything that your style draws from, and then you can like get inspiration from it. So you could just Google pinball machines, maybe
Neon-
like
neon
do some
glow.
of these. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
neon or something.
Exactly.
And I like you see, I like your references, like even that gamer graphic.
This gamer one, yeah. So that was like one of the first ones that just kind of popped up in reference to
It's
the
pretty.
style.
That's pretty classic. That encompasses a
Yeah.
lot of things from like that decade, that
Exactly.
era.
It's
Well,
got, like,
it,
the
it also
old tech
captures the kind of
chroming.
the new retro, or sort of
Like
our
chroming here.
our futuristic version of the what was that Netflix show, Stranger Things. I feel like
Yeah.
the Stranger Things like graphic style. There's been a number of these, you know,
So that we
Ready
can-
Player One, Wreck-It Ralph. Like there's been so many just like 80s 8-bit reference stuff. You know,
it.
I
Yeah.
love it. I can't get enough
Have
of it.
you seen Kung Fury? Kung Fury.
No, which one's that?
It's like a short movie about 30 minutes long.
Mm-hmm.
You have to watch it.
What is the-
you can thank me later.
Oh, I will.
Oh, it's awesome.
Oh, that's
Kung
an old
Fury.
one. Yeah, that is.
What-
Yeah,
An
a
old
couple
is-
years ago.
like,
So they do an 80s take. They throw everything awesome in 80s
Oh, cool.
into a 30-minute cop versus machine show where there's time traveling and there's Hitler and there's dinosaurs and
Yeah.
all sorts of things. Yeah, there we go. JC knows. Steve Santiago. It's really good. It's really good.
It's a short one, right?
Yeah, it's like 30 minutes
Yeah.
long.
There is-
I think
remember-
isn't it on Netflix?
Remember that band
so.
Justice
Yeah.
from France? Like Justice had a couple of videos where they hired some like cool motion graphics group to do this, and they basically the entire music video is referencing the intros from like the 80s and 70s, like at the beginning it would be like like a starburst. They have recreated frame for frame, so the video is powerful. But what's even more powerful is the making of video for the video, because they literally referenced each one of those, like, because at the beginning of like a production house's intro, like we have a movie or a television show, at the end they would do these kind of spectacular kind of little vignettes, and it would have audio and stuff. Does that ring a bell?
Yeah, show me.
You don't remember that though? You don't remember the like at the beginning, like how MGM has the roaring lion, like they always have those like things.
Yeah. I remember a few of those from the 80s. What are those called?
Those are
It's
called
like
interstitial
studio-
branding.
Like that type of thing?
Well, this is what I'm showing you. Wait, so flick real
There we
quick on
go.
the screen. So this is the Justice video, where each one of these. So the song is called DVNO.
Okay, I'll only kind of show a little bit of it because I don't want the video to get like flagged for like any
Well,
copyright.
don't. Oh, you just look
issue.
up yourself then. So yeah, DVNO.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, no, this is all like we could do frames of this. And,
So in this video, that's like the Reading Rainbow intro.
okay.
So each one of these scenes is brilliantly recreated.
That looks like that looks like kind of a Stranger Thing right there. Stranger Things.
Well, no, that would have still been. This is from like 6 years ago. But yes, exactly. Maybe the same thing that they inspired
with the
by. Yeah,
intro.
exactly. And that's what's so brilliant about this kind of work. And that's why I kind of brought this up as a critical example. Is so much of this is parody. So much of this has already been done, literally already been done. And you can get away apparently with frame by frame recreations of these styles.
Yeah.
But there is so much of that brilliant work to go back and kind of fall in love with.
Oh yeah, love it. This is fun. So fun to look at.
Yeah. All that old nostalgia stuff.
Like that. And I'm kind of like, and I'll click back to your screen. I think
Oh yeah,
you're
I think you had it on the screen.
guest computer B. Oh,
I think
you
we're
are
over.
good.
We're
Okay.
over.
So yeah, the
Well.
DVNO Justice video. Look up the making of.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Okay, good. I will. We don't want you to go there now. Stay
Don't
with
go
us.
there now though. Yeah, don't go there now.
Hang out.
Yeah, hang with us. Do some charts.
But,
Mix this up.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm gonna just chuck some. I'll chuck some stats in
This
there.
is
Oh, the
this is
computer.
Kung Fury, just so you know, to kind of give you an idea.
Oh, that is beautiful, isn't
It's
it?
just all.
We need more of these full
It's
length
all
films,
ridiculous
though.
stuff.
I wanted Ready Player One to be more like this.
Yeah.
I wasn't crazy about Ready Player One. People seem to like it. I wasn't crazy about it. I did watch it in Spanish. I don't speak Spanish.
Yeah, so that could have been it.
Oh, you
I also
did?
fell asleep while watching it too. So did you love it?
Ready Player One.
Did you love it?
Did I love it? It was pretty good.
I feel like if you have to think about it,
I know.
The
I kinda
problem with
gave you
movies
the
these
answer
days.
before I actually gave
The
you
problem with
answer.
movies these days is we are giving away like 95% Rotten Tomato ratings like it's candy. It's ridiculous. It's like
Yeah,
we
that's-
need to take a step back and realize that like all these new movies can't be 95%. I think it's almost like the movie studios feel like if it gets a bad rating, then it's not going to be purchased properly, so they pay to get. To me, the ratings, the Rotten
It's kind
Tomato,
of screwed up. It's
I
kind
can't
of-
trust it anymore.
Yeah.
It's driving me crazy.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
It's kind of
I
like
mean, who was that? Like, New
Like-
York? What was it? New York Times critic just beat up Infinity War because he's like, I don't know who these people are. And it's like, okay, well, it's
What?
like,
Yeah.
you already, did you read this? But he gave
No, I
it a
didn't read
bad
that.
review,
Interesting.
but because he wasn't familiar with any of the characters.
Right.
And I'm sorry, this is the accumulation of all these other movies.
A
I'm
lot of
sorry,
movies.
a
So
sequel.
many movies.
I'm sorry, you have to know a little bit about the person as you go into the sequel. That's why it's called a sequel. So
Well-
it's really stupid, but done by a very smart
Right,
man.
right.
That would have given a bad review for just the stupidest reason ever.
Yeah.
Well, being Rotten Tomatoes devil's advocate, what Rotten Tomatoes' strategy is to split the critics' reviews, which of course are evenly distributed, with these evenly or whatever with the user reviews.
Yeah.
Because they are pulling in. You know what I mean? But the reason the New York Times subjective review still has a place is if you're a guy like that writer, you
Yeah,
might
that's
not.
true. That's
You know
a
what I
good
mean?
point. That's a
Because
good
my
point.
dad would do that. He would read these movie reviews, and he'd be like, "Oh, that movie sucks. You shouldn't go see it." I'd be like, "I don't care what you think,"
Yeah.
and I would, because it wasn't made for him. But there weren't.
Yeah,
they don't
yeah.
write reviews for people like us. Apparently,
Yeah.
Vice and channels like this, I feel like, are starting to kind of have a more accurate voice of the youth. But
That's a good
New
point.
York
So
Times can be out of
the
touch.
New York Times guy probably relates to your dad because your dad
Well, but
maybe
the guy-
has not seen any of
Yeah,
the movies,
yeah.
and he's like, okay, I relate to this guy because I haven't seen any of the shows.
it's a New York kind of a thing, you know. It's like a guy in Dallas is probably, or I don't know, some other place is having a different kind of opinion.
Sorry about that. I didn't mean to ignore the chat because we're actually down
Giveaways?
to, we need to do some giveaways, and I might have missed any questions and references. I'm sure we got a lot of smart people here, so always good to see. But it is time to do a giveaway. And they were asking what font that you were using there for the percentages and stuff.
This font is Gotham Black.
Gotham's great.
Super flexible family. So if you can
You know
see
what
there,
it needs too, by the way, and again,
It's
I
got 'em
don't
all.
want you to have art directors.
No, we want our directors. What do you got? What do you got?
Just like the slight glowing type, and I'm not gonna.
Oh no,
we'll do
we're
it.
just getting started.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Let's do some.
What else you
glowing
got?
type.
Any other
Which is,
suggestions? Any other suggestions?
Well, and I'm. Yeah. Hold on. It's at the very beginning here.
We'll jump in.
It's like this. If you look like really closely.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, like the
at
slide
bleeding.
overlay.
Well, but
Yeah,
look,
a
and
lot
there's
of the
also
time it's
there's
almost
also the
just
shadow, the lightning shadows there, you know.
Yeah.
And there is a dark, like a black shadow behind it, even though it's on dark. It's got that extra
Yeah.
pop. That is
You've
beautiful.
also
Yeah, it's
got-
like that fragmentation of
This
that
feels very like
system.
Die Hard. I feel like because Die Hard had like a very serious kind of an intro like
Sorry
this.
about that.
The Nakatomi Plaza.
You've also got the stuff that's like almost like a 3D picture, so that kind of like offsets your eyes a bit. So like feels like it sits off a little bit, but it's just because it's using the
That
pink and
looks
blue
so
like an
good. I love it. All right, so we've picked a winner for the one and only super modified book. That's right here. This is the Behance book of all these amazing
I know, it's beautiful. I was
portfolios, like
looking through
full color, gorgeous
awesome.
pages. All that's basically if you wanted to take Behance with you, this is how you do it essentially. And our winner is
Grant Okazaki.
good pronunciation. I would have killed Grant Okazaki. Grant, if you're in chat, you're the proud owner of Super Modified, which also has some. Your shirt has a little transparency in it. So does this. Like you notice it when you move around.
That
See,
is pretty cool.
and the book does too. Has some green in it. So anyway, Grant, hopefully you're with us in chat. We want to be able to give this to you, and Gus will run it right to your doorstep. Because why not?
Man, you could do like a magazine like that, where it's like every month you do somebody. Like, I
This
feel
is
like
one
printing
point.
stuff.
This is something that I did not find for a very long time when
Yeah.
I very first started. It was reset bounding box.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
Did you guys see that? And again, I know we're going to be in Photoshop in a heartbeat,
We're
but
gonna do it.
essentially,
So when you twist something and you know you're thinking, what the heck am I going to do? You just go object, transform, and reset it. And it switches the
it
bounding
makes
box
that
back.
the new 0 point.
Exactly. So then
Interesting.
you can like twist it, and then you've got
Yeah, that's
Like
so
basically,
good.
yeah.
Reset bounding box. Another thing, I don't know how you made that shape, but for circles,
sliced it off,
you
yeah.
are very
For
good
circles.
here, by the way. You could slice it, but also the circle has a control point that you could take a slice
oh,
out
you
of
can
that
take
pie.
a slice out at the start. Okay.
Yeah, so just draw it, and then it'll get a control point off to the side. See when you select. Go, no, yeah,
Oh,
there
when
you
you're
go.
very first in this.
That little guy, yeah. Rope.
Oh, I never knew that was.
kinda nice,
That is
huh?
great.
I did need the
But-
slice, but I like that.
But
like
if you need
I
multiple
was-
slices, though,
Well,
wouldn't it
definitely
be
if
still?
I need a Pac-Man, which I do.
But if you needed
I always
like
need a
20,
Pac-Man.
would that still be the most practical way to do it?
If I need 20,
you
I'd
need
probably just do it once and then duplicate.
Right. That
Almost all the time.
But
Yeah.
you would probably always need more than one.
Super handy for
But that
art,
is a good.
though.
I mean, that is brilliant.
Yeah.
Because you know what it is? Is it's almost like you regress back to basics and you forget about some of these like tricks, you know?
Yeah.
Because it's like it's just easier to remember some of the basic things. Because then you're like stumbling. Like, how do I do this thing? I don't want to stumble. You know, I only want to know how to do things and remember them. It's
Yeah.
a trap, though. It's a trap.
Yeah, you knocked
it's
this out pretty
definitely.
fast, so that's pretty darn awesome.
So just kind of like make, forks. like a fake 3D shape, really. Not using the 3D features.
Whenever I see gradients in infographics, like you got to give credit where it's due. Like Wired really did a brilliant job over the years of setting that extremely modern style. But I got to give also credit to Bloomberg. Like if there were two things that you like, go look at Bloomberg magazine. They really do a brilliant job of pushing the limit on illustration and complex stuff that just is like in a league of its own. Everything's really boring compared to what they're doing.
Pathfinder that all together.
There also is there's like all these crazy tools.
Well, right. Well, they're not crazy, are they? They're
No.
chart building tools. No, and those are
Yeah.
brilliant. And what I'll find sometimes hybrids on the team where maybe you're working with a strategist that isn't a designer that's handing off things like this. PowerPoint does have, they're ugly, but you can use whatever tool, whether it's from, you might be using, sometimes you'll be using Google Analytics to create little charts. And you think, that'd be great. Screenshot that, pull that into Adobe, and then create, build from something that's already created. These can be quite tricky to master. Is the only using the Adobe chart tools are brilliant to master, but the backup plan is beg, borrow, steal your way to figuring out how that information should be accurately displayed, and then rebuild in your Adobe tool. You know what I mean? Because it's just sometimes people need to use software that spits out charts, but then that's not the end point. That's just an accurate way to.
Yeah, it's like in the second stream that we did, we were kind of talking about structures. Like you'd almost like get a very accurate reading by just getting an automatic chart, so you know that all the angles that you're working with are correct. Because it does make a difference. Like you don't want your data to be actually wrong when you finish up styling.
Right.
Because it still needs to be accurate and usable.
I would want the data to fit my drawings. Like I would just manipulate the data so I don't have to change my drawings. What I ended up doing.
That's basically like the first step. Is you're like rule number one must work with the actual numbers.
So that's something gradienty, kind of like.
So this is
3D
good.
slice.
Tolumuko art is all about, half his portfolio is about illustration. So that's good. Or graphics like this. We'll take a look at those, hopefully, and we'll do those reviews. You got 50 minutes, plenty of time. This is looking really good.
Warm up some labels and some titles.
Yeah.
Just like switch out the background too, like remix.
Yeah, I'll do up a new one. Kind of like get our swatches in here. Can't recommend enough. Just like delete out your stock swatches.
So many bad ones in there. So
Just
Do you have
completely strip your stock swatches and then kind of build it yourself. So I've just got the colors that I've been using in here.
Do we have a stock palette that we use all the time? Is that what you're gonna say?
Yeah.
So the answer to that, which I was hoping that was what you were gonna say, is that if you had that perfect palette, then you'd get bored of it so quickly that the first thing you'd be thinking about is like, yo, email. How do we like? Here's a new one. You have to, I think, not have a sort of templatized approach, because that's, in our case, because clients are paying these big bucks for this creative stuff.
Yeah.
If we were just giving them a template, it's almost that bad, I think, when you start resorting back to those kinds of tricks.
And then
You know what I'm saying?
it gets revealed in your portfolio when you look at it.
And
you see them all. And you're like, oh, you really have it.
That's exactly right. No, and what I would sometimes, but on that note, when I was more of a sort of a one-man team, what I did find myself doing is saving files that I might have called master file or template file or something. And if I'm just as a one-man team, maybe you guys are a one-man team. Yeah, absolutely. You pull old files, especially when I was doing collages. You might have created a little piece that you wanted to pull in something else, layouts that work. But I kind of keep those in an archive, and I feel like it's a bit better to not overly organize them, because like, oh my God, how much time do you spend pulling these things? And then you got to remember where they are, how to use them.
Yeah, you can kind of save your favorites in there now. Like you've got your library, like your Adobe cloud library, so that's good. Like when you're dropping things in. Yeah, kind of like your universal go-to, especially the icons and that kind of thing.
And I have some go-tos. I end up using a lot of the same, like recreating some of the same gradients, and I'm like, I guess I'm making this again, because there's really nothing in the gradients. Nothing in the swatches when you first.
It's very basic. You got like sunset.
Do you remember Adobe Exchange? Is Adobe Exchange still around?
It is.
Oh, Adobe Exchange. I need to catch up. I would love to hear the updated version or even see what it's like.
Yeah.
I thought Adobe Exchange was going to be such an incredible like addition to our agency workflow. I thought we would have the designers pulling stuff up there, buying certain things. Adobe Exchange has such incredible potential because what we're talking about, getting those gradients and everything ready to go, there is incredible power in that. But the reality is that if you're a designer, you kind of the last thing you want to do is use one of those built-in styles, right? But that doesn't mean you don't want access to more better ones.
Yeah.
Also, there are still thriving.
Yeah, there's still stuff going on. I think kind of what's next is our like Creative Cloud libraries.
Right. Yeah. And stock, I was thinking would be the answer too, right?
Yeah, because you could share, like I could share a library and have it, which I don't like the terminology. I'll show you in a sec. Something like followable, which will make it updatable. Like so, you can have Aaron Draplin's library.
Oh yeah,
and
for
as
sure.
he
Oh, that's
adds
cool.
to it, it'll update in your Creative Cloud library.
Which you could also imagine if it was a corporate brand style or the iOS style
Yeah.
or the Adobe whatever style that you have to use for whatever it is. That's interesting. Because one of the things you should check out, guys, is Tihan Locks. Is a UX agency that was acquired by Facebook. These guys are now Facebook executives, and one of the things this agency used to do, they still do it now under the Facebook design website, is they create iOS, Android, Facebook URL. They make like 10 different PSDs. They constantly update them, okay? So if you could screenshot Photoshop, you could find some PSD that somebody else made. Photoshop makes a PSD that you can download and pull apart. They also give you stock photos of people holding iPhones, multicultural hands. It's the most incredible. So Google,
What is it again? Yeah, what is it called again?
do you want to go back to Google searches so I can confirm it, okay? Do Facebook PSD design, Facebook PSD design, those three terms, see what comes up. Yeah, so the first thing that comes up is tools and resources. Let's click on that real quick, make sure that's exactly the one. Okay, exactly. So tools and resources, hidden, incredible, absolutely incredible. The devices, you might, back in the day, one of the other services I want to shout out is a site called You Work For Them. YouWorkForThem.com. They've been around 12, 13, 14 years. That's a long years. They sell boutique fonts, boutique motion graphic templates, boutique stock. And so
Successful too.
super successful.
Yeah, yeah.
And their emails are great. Love you guys. And when I think of these free resources, again, the Facebook tools section has tons of free stuff. I also think about the paid services. And there's a ton of these. We don't use these enough. Over the years, I've tried to get everybody, I'm always sending them these links saying, do you want to buy something? And it's just, we never end up buying anything from these services. But I always like referring,
Yeah, referring back to
designer, well, but I'm saying like illustrators and designers, people that just need a leg up and want to make stuff that looks beautiful. And maybe you aren't an illustrator, but you want to work with illustrated stuff that you're not stealing, that you're at least paying for.
Yeah.
We need more places like this.
Yeah, that's good. I like it. There's a couple little free things that are right in Creative
Oh,
Cloud,
totally.
too.
There's tons in there.
So, like assets.
Oh, it's incredible. It's
Let's
endless.
do grid. Let's just
I like
do,
pattern.
like graph. And we'll just switch back.
So are
like
these?
that. These are free.
And are these graphic, like Illustrator files are editable, or are those
Yeah.
like rendered out as images? Because clearly that probably wouldn't. That's just clip art, right?
Yeah.
How do you tell the difference when you're at this view?
Here, I think visually you can just tell. But I just searched for a graph. I think if I did
But you'd still get the vector.
t-shirt, let's do shirt, because we'll get maybe icons and then an actual real shirt maybe. Because
Well, that's one of the.
They have placeholder graphics. Like, I'll do this drop down. So for placement, user interface vectors, so you can kind of do that.
Threadless,
Yeah.
by the way. One of the most exciting things you can do as a young designer is take something you've designed and drop it on like an image of a T-shirt. right?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
put your logo on a t-shirt, you
Yeah.
put your kid's face on a t-shirt. The mock-up of the shirt is something we all need to master. So you can Google blank t-shirt. There's actually a ton of stuff that will come up. But Threadless has a PSD, just like we were talking about with the T-Unlocks Facebook stuff. And it's the most incredible, diverse group of people wearing blank t-shirts. All the different shirts are annotated in these layered PSD files. It's all free. Not free to reuse, but it's free to hack around with. But I feel like that's something I have never stopped doing. I have never stopped dropping designs on like blank hoodies.
It's so fun.
It's so fun.
It's a good design. It's good for keeping yourself in line too with like how you layer it and that kind of thing.
Totally.
So you really got to think like, is this a 3 color? Is this a 2 color?
That's exactly
Like,
right.
or you just can't. It's not possible.
And you use some of those effects because the reality is, if you're dropping like a vector graphic on an image of a shirt, what you actually have to get really good at is some of the subtle blending tricks. You know what I mean? You might do a subtle blend so that it literally looks like it's on the shirt. You know?
Yeah. I like it.
What's
I'm
this?
syncing that up now, and sorry to.
What's this?
I'm
that's cool.
gonna do that. I'm gonna drop that on, maybe. But anyways, so we're about 40 minutes out. Yeah, so I agree with Val. She's digging these color fades and retro
You
gradients.
like it all?
And
Yeah, cool.
How
cool.
did you do that? I must have missed that part where you actually wrapped the gradients around.
That was
those
from yesterday. The one you
curves.
love. He's pulling that back just for you. Remember?
That's
Okay.
a slightly different.
I was just like,
That's
remember you
using
fell in love with that
Oh, I
yesterday.
loved it.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I so loved it.
So that's actually using blend tool because
I can't remember how you did it now that I think
You
of
make
it.
the bar graph first, and then he made it like a layer brush.
yeah.
Or something
you
like
made
that,
a
remember?
brush.
But you
Oh, that's
make it
right.
first.
and then it's your stroke.
But you make it
Exactly.
first, the way it's accurate, and then he's like, wrapping it.
That's
Something
like
like
the
that.
experimental way, and then I'll show you this way. So you grab if you say you need it, because usually you're working to some kind of like dimensions. So if you need it to be working to this, so like you just need it to be that big, and then you've got however many sets of data. You just grab the blend tool, grab your middle one, grab your outside one, and it will give you however many steps you set within this blend tool. So specified steps, smooth color is pretty radical if you've not seen that. So you grab these two. You could try and use that in here. So you select this, and then you select the one it wants to blend to, and it just
Sweet.
gives you a full blend.
Gotta love it. Very nice. I know some people will sometimes use that just to pick colors. Is if you did
Yeah.
4 steps,
Right.
it'll give
Yeah.
you those 4 blended colors. It just kind of mixes colors for you. That's really
Yeah.
cool.
Because the
can
color picker
love
is
it.
such an incredibly important part of the Adobe tool experience, and any which way you can get your hands
And
on it.
the colors you're instinctually like picking are looking really good. I agree with everybody here.
And
Like
is everyone
Ricardo.
is everyone familiar with like taking a photograph you like, which is of course already been color balanced? You know what I mean? You might not realize it, but sometimes these photographs you're looking at are perfectly color balanced. You drop that into Adobe, and then you're using the eyedropper tool to pick colors that are from a photograph that you've zoomed into. That's always I found a good trick to get organic color palettes
Yeah.
that are just easy, because it's hard to do that in your head mathematically, the sort of the balancing. But I remember that from Flash back in the day, that you'd pull color palettes from photos, but it's
And
so
that's-
they're already kind of blended. They're already kind of balanced in a lot of cases.
Yeah, and that's important because you're picking colors for a
Yeah.
reason, you know? You're just not picking a color at random. It's like
Yep. So yeah, using that color dropper tool for a variety of reasons, whether it's creating a parody of a layout, a faux layout, recreating the Facebook interface or something like this. But yeah, creative uses of the eyedropper tool.
Yeah, it's
you know
all
it'd
about
also
the
be fun
creative
for
use.
some of I love your
Our pattern. Can be
We're just
cool.
going to use that smooth color just because it seemed like a cool tool. Oh, and it.
Oh, that would be good too. Do the zigzag.
That
Oh,
was
that's
fun
good.
too.
I'll do that later.
Yeah, that does look cool.
Oh, that's cool. Sarah says she's using the blend tool to make characters with it, like text.
Oh yeah.
Well, actually,
that
no,
is
sorry,
cool. I
like
that.
not text, but actually characters, because she says they're furry little pets and I don't know
Yeah.
things.
Well, I feel like if you add
awesome.
eyes, I feel like if you add eyes to any like vector
what-
shape, you can like
What's
get away
Kevin's
with it.
talking about, I think, is that you can actually, like, it gets pretty radical, the old blend tool. Like, it can,
Yeah.
you can do some pretty nut stuff. So I might not make it go too crazy.
And
You could go one better. You can have it follow a shape.
Follow a
Because double click inside of that, and you have that path that connects one to the next.
Yeah.
You notice how you could select that path? Well, you could copy a line and then replace that
Yeah.
direct straight line with the squiggly line or something.
and if
Yeah,
it was
you
a
can also
motion,
just curve it out.
Yeah.
and you can imagine animated. Yeah.
That's like a pretty radical thing, especially if you're doing some like abstract jellyfish or something.
Or it's like a hole,
Yeah.
something falling into a hole or something. What's important about what's happening here, right, is that if you aren't allowing yourself to be a digital artist, an illustrator or a digital artist, so like I couldn't really draw, so I was always doing digital collages. I always like clipping things. Taylor is of course more of a traditional illustrator, and it's more obvious for him when you see this kind of stuff happening. But you really got to like force yourself to use these same tools to like. I don't want to use the word hack because that's maybe sort of an overused misterm here, but like you got to hack around because
Yeah.
once you break something, experiment, right, and just like force yourself to do creative things. Because then when you're doing those boring like layout things, you're remembering those keystrokes. You know, you've already got these choices already made. I just find a lot of designers like think of themselves as like a layout kind of graphic designer, and then there's these illustrators, but there are still moments where you can kind of be drifting over. You know what I mean? And force
Yeah.
yourself to like make abstract art. That's the word I think I was looking for here. It's like if all day long you're doing corporate work, you really need to do some abstract stuff just to learn the tools better. Just to, you know, understand how colors move and gradients, you know?
Yeah, especially
I
gradients.
love those. I love those gradients. I like how simple this is, and it looks so good.
Yeah, simple and effective. Just like works really well. Bright colors. Also, just like not using black. Black's one of my least favorite colors. Like if you use a purple, it just really like will just feel a lot more rich. Even if you
Interesting.
use a black with just a little bit of blue in there,
Yeah,
it just kind of like pops
interesting.
out those other. Pops out
You're
those
exactly
other
right.
colors.
Because like when in art school, we could never buy a black tube of paint. You always had to mix it. So basically, black was never black. It was just it's accumulation of all these other colors. It's kind of what you're saying. Like
yeah, exactly.
you could never paint with black. You always had a color anytime in paint class.
Right, and
also-
but
light painting.
in paint class, isn't there also that theory that you like paint the canvas dark first because colors sort of react off of the like? It's ironic that canvases are all white. I believe you are. When you're doing darker pieces, you might still paint the canvas dark first.
Yeah.
Because other colors are
Yeah.
bouncing off the black or something.
So if we're talking about experimental, I'll see if we can.
Switch up so it's not purple. Let's switch it up so they're not all purple.
do
Oh, I
brown.
like.
Or just like something
I like it.
do,
Oh, I'm
or do
gonna-
a 5-color gradient. Do something like a rainbow.
I was gonna try and gradient. Use a gradient map.
Yeah, come on. Or do
So-
a pattern too. I think I could like, put a cool like pattern.
Put a pattern through it. Yeah,
cool,
we'll
could be
get to
cool.
like the.
Cool.
Saved by the
Hey,
Bell
no
stuff.
whispering. You need
Yeah,
to
so
share
sorry.
with the class.
We're just.
Oh, because you got the patterns
We
coming
get
up too.
excited. Yeah. So patterns. Oh yeah, it's all about patterns. Well, if we're going to talk about patterns, then we can go like this, can't we? We'll get a stroke. Where is my stroke? Yeah. So you
Yeah,
gotta-
the blend tool, if I'm not mistaken, was actually introduced in Illustrator 88, which was
Oh, wow.
basically the first big Illustrator.
Incredible.
1988. That's when we had the blend tool.
Do you feel like it's underused?
That's a good question. I think people are doing amazing things with it, of
Yeah.
course. So yeah, it might be.
Yeah, it's almost like it's like you think someone's done that manually, but it's actually like
Right.
blend tool curves.
Well, all
We
those
had a-
distribution tricks are it's such magic when you realize how that stuff is done. You're like, wait, they didn't have to manually place those there? That's incredible.
Yeah, especially when you
That
see
looks
things
great.
like that, and
That
it's
starts
like
moving, that kind of
Yeah.
that on like a colored background. I feel like the minute you throw something
Yeah.
on like a textured colored background, it all of a sudden feels more expensive. Things are on white background still feel like it's
Yeah, CS3. All of this packaging was the blend tool by, I can't remember her name. This is all So our whole
Yeah,
packaging was the
for
blend
sure.
tool back in the day.
Well, and that was the
that's
beauty
super
of
cool.
Adobe not
I can't
having
remember her name though. I'm sorry.
the Adobe
Maria Grunlund. That's her name.
The Adobe packaging, you know, every time that was updated, because you've never really had any competition, this was always a sparkling example of like what the tools could do, you know? And it's like you want them to be more complex, and
Yep.
every time you're sort of wondering what the album art's going to be like.
Yeah. And now we're just all community focused because when you launch the splash screens, it's all
Different.
Behance
Yep.
people. I would love to have that swap out where it's like maybe something new.
Yeah.
Someone new each time.
Well, and kind of like
Yeah,
how you use
yeah.
those TVs as like picture frames. You could have custom. You could, it could be your friend's art, or kind of.
Yeah.
And Dropbox has got a really unique style there, where they just kind of showcase work and you see things pop up. Like I got a whole free Deadmau5 CD that was just part of the background of Dropbox.
Oh,
Really?
nice! Your Dropbox is so
Oh,
cool.
wow.
Yeah, just like it wasn't
How did
every
they
time.
know?
It wasn't every time, but
How
it's
did they know you like Dead Mouse?
Oh,
Was it it?
I,
Oh,
just
they didn't-
I
they-
happen to like them, but it's probably something to
It
do
might have
with
just
data.
been some
data.
subtle
Yeah, something to
promo.
do.
Well, or it might have just been a subtle promo that he Easter egg figured out where the Easter egg was. That's what I assumed from that.
Yeah, like the background.
But you're thinking, how
sometimes
did they
have got
know?
things
Were they
different.
reading my? I just wrote a message about Dead
How
Mouse.
did
No,
they
they-
know?
Yeah.
I like
know
the
what
fact
you're
that maybe you had an MP3 file or something there or something.
Oh, there you
Because
go.
they're
That
reading
is
your files.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they're like,
that or that reading my phone
Well, that would be like
messages, and that's how
that would be
they-
like Gmail having like a pop up of like meet somebody like you. This person uses words just like you. You'd be like, that's so weird. This person is awful. Wait a second.
and I'd be like, this person's a fourth grader. I'm like, okay, because,
Exactly.
I write at a fourth grade level.
Okay, so this is something that I assumed is a glitch, and it happens sometimes when you can't deselect the bounding box, and it stays selected.
Really? That's never happened to me, but you can't deselect it?
No.
Did you
When you select something else, I
is
guess
your
you just like
subscription up to date?
Oh, I don't know why that.
But what you're saying is you click off of it.
Yeah, click
it'll
off it and
stay
it
on
just doesn't
until
do
you
it.
click
It could be
something
that the layer
else.
is so massive that you're just thinking you're clicking off of it, but it's still there.
Mm.
I went out of
Could
my way
be,
to click
yeah.
something I knew was a layer.
Yeah, it could just be.
Hi, Mom.
All right, so yeah, about 30 minutes. We'll do portfolio reviews. Another fun thing
Yeah, that distortion's cool.
based on this style is just doing a
That's
3D.
good.
There's 3D isometric
I
stuff.
like that middle one.
That is.
Oh, I
cool.
know. Oh, isometric. We are super all about it, and of course that's part of the reference pool here, right? Is general.
That is really cool.
And when we think isometric pixel, one of the things that you really can't overlook is that when we think of like video game interfaces, they had to think about a lot of things. One of which is typography and infographics, right? Like the shooting games, there's always that sort of the amount of bullets. These little systems rely heavily on numbers, icons, and generally information design. So you can, whether it's just for parity's sake or just broadly for understanding how to use those fonts. Do you remember pixel fonts back in Flash, where you'd have fonts that were designed? They were sort
Yeah.
of they were called
Yeah.
pixel fonts.
I remember.
We used to buy fonts from a site called fontsforflash.com, FFF. And
I believe it.
what was brilliant about it is you could use these fonts at like 2 points. You could shrink them down to be tiny, and
that was
they're still
like-
readable.
Yeah, and that's what we love to do as designers. Make really small text that's gray
Yeah.
Well, where-
on white in the corner,
Yeah,
and then
completely unreal.
Yeah.
But sometimes what we were doing is we were doing the copyright footers like that before it was the kick over to everything being native type. We might have rendered out something like the copyright tinier than we could have done as actual type. Those tiny little moments,
Yeah.
or our site by link
I
was a
remember that
graphic,
stuff.
that kind of stuff.
yeah,
But we can still use those kind of fonts
totally
for
remember that.
tiny stuff.
That would be cool here. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Recreating chat message, a parody for me is like, whether you're starting out or whether you're making cool stuff, like I always love to recreate things. So whether it's like chat conversations or tweets, like mastering recreating those things where you start with a screenshot of like a tweet, and then you just block off these areas, use the color picker to, make that a blank area, and just start to understand how to recreate type by laying
Yeah.
type over top of type and just doing the layer spacing yourself. Like that is actually sometimes more fulfilling and quicker than trying to find one of these PSDs that's already made.
We'll start with some Saved by the Bell stuff. Start getting some dots in there.
So are you moving on to like the 90s?
Yeah, so we'll keep on remixing. This is like a big part of our process is like you'd pick a little part, and it's just really good, say like if you've got that whole layout, because like everything we've done up till now is like, it leads to this complex part with the full layout of all the information. You don't need to jump in and start styling the entire thing and then think, oh, actually I don't like that. It's all about testing the waters, see what you like. So if there's one bar chart in there, maybe make yourself a little snackable from your full graphic, and then style that little bit, style one bar chart, see how it works out, and then kind of like launch into really applying it to the full thing. Mm-hmm. Rather than like you get halfway through and you realize, oh, it's actually a bit much. Mm-hmm. So we'll get some dots.
And you're getting like the basic shapes. Oh wow, that's cool. So what did you just pick at?
So these are those actually just stock. So you just go into your swatches. There's some pretty radical stuff actually in there. Hang on, we'll have a look. There's animal patterns and all sorts. Your arrow will actually make it get to the next. So this Saved by the Bell is this like 90s style. It's like a lot of patterns.
Very radical pattern. Very radical.
Yeah. That's
very tubular.
Yeah. A lot of this good for texturing. Like there's quite a few there. So this is without even really downloading anything. It's just
this is good.
It's just sitting there.
That's good. And you'll probably only get this is awesome, by the way. But I don't know if you drop this into like Photoshop before long, and that's where you probably add like, I don't know if we really need to, or like at what level you do that.
So the Photoshop, like a large kind of step over for us is like we have all of our step over, like we have everything set out, and then we do a little bit of testing of effects within like the Photoshop effects that actually are within Illustrator.
Okay.
So you've got like your distorts, and then you can get a few glows.
So it doesn't matter what you're
using
using if you're in Illustrator or Photoshop, it's still the same effect.
Yeah, so like it's very natural kind of like pass over from one to the other. Definitely before we export, like we wouldn't do a straight export probably from Illustrator to the file. Like we'd want to pass it through Photoshop because it's just got like much better detection for the pixels, and you're not going to end up with any weird things. Sometimes you're clipping masks.
It's going to be pixels.
Yeah, exactly. So unless
and to me, typography too. It's almost like I feel like, right? Like if there's heavy on typography, it is nice to use the typography tools in Illustrator because you can move quickly. But type in Illustrator is, unless it's very plain and simple, is ugly compared to the detailed stuff you're able to do in Photoshop, right? So the minute you're dealing with any typography, and then of course I'm coming from a web layout world, so I'm always thinking about the effect of typography. So like you fall into this trap when you're designing web layouts in Illustrator, and then you're trying to do the typography, and it just feels like Photoshop is a better choice for anything with kind of smaller typography. So the alignment, the paragraphing stuff, it just feels smarter. But maybe over the years it's gotten better, and I've just like figured out. I just like Illustrator too because I can move so quickly. I got the infinite canvas. Photoshop feels like I'm using expensive paper. You know what I'm saying? With a printer, it just is slower. It feels like I'm spending valuable seconds, whereas with Illustrator, it's so quick.
Yeah. So like we go with like a very natural, like just switch over from like one to the other. It's really nice having like your smart objects too, so that you can start out with the things that you know you're going to remix the most, so that you can drop your, just directly drop your object into Photoshop, and it will keep its, it'll keep the vector lines. It won't like lose its size. Like it'll always be like 300 detail.
What do they call it? Like an auto? What do they call that when you bring in something from Illustrator into Photoshop? What is that term that's called?
It's like
smart object.
Yeah,
that was the most brilliant progression that photo, because it was like they were these separate tools, and it's almost like the world that we want is actually one tool. Why are they separate? It's almost like if I open up the file, that's where it should be chosen between the sort of Photoshop and Illustrator. I don't think having them separate, you know what I mean? It's like I just think of them as one tool.
Yeah.
So for your smart object.
There's a lot of like blurring the lines, and I think kind of what you're dealing with and what we're learning from you, even right now, and we do have some questions in the chat, but like your color choices and what you're doing as a designer is what I'm most interested in right now, and then you're also giving us specific tool tips.
So
do you have I'm just looking at Tima's. We reviewed his portfolio last segment.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a library of infographics that you pull from, or is this all kind of like? I feel like it's all in your head, and you
Yeah,
just
we kind of
create
go.
it.
We kind of go on the fly. If you go with anything too templated, you can kind of like run into trouble. Like you don't think of the full spectrum. Like that's why we did a lot of exploration in the last 2 streams. It's like you just need to really just start fresh. Like look at what the information is that you've got, and then obviously like to do a bar chart yourself and then just quickly put it together. Like the difference between dragging it and just doing 3 blocks and then kind of pulling them up is a
Yeah.
very like small difference. But
Well,
if you've got your library there,
yeah.
there's no reason not to.
Part of the question I think is important to sort of dissect, because remember, we're thinking about this as a money-making business, and we've done this for 10 years, so we've sort of thought a lot about what could be more efficient or not. The reality is that it's like information design, especially infographics, think about charts, think about maps, think about the traditional infographic elements, those are meant to be replicated. When we think of how we see charts or maps in the newspaper, they're using what we might call open source shapes. Like that's how basic the core of infographic design is. So there is no reason to have like this kind of core set of. Yesterday we did kind of go over like ways that you can present information, and we're always thinking about that. We're always thinking of references and stuff we've seen that we want to kind of replicate, or things that have been successful that we want to kind of do again. But the reality is that that would be too prescriptive, because then when you've got to kind of make something for the client, you're not thinking, well, we only know how to do 7 different things, so it's got to be one of these 7. So plus infographic design, just like presentation design, just like layout design, is a combination of things, right? It's typography, it's layout, it's infographic chart build. It's so many of these skills.
Yeah, exactly.
That's you. The one thing you should do is look at Bloomberg, look at Wired. That's every month. I'm impressed with Bloomberg. That's how good it is.
So just one thing when we're talking about like, are you gonna push it over to Photoshop from Illustrator, or if you're gonna push something back? Like definitely, if you're going to have some photography within your Illustrator file, like clip that out really nice. Like spend the time, like get that sorted in Photoshop for sure, and then push that over.
Oh, dealing with photos
Yeah,
in
and
Illustrator
then-
is also
and
a
then put
nightmare
in-
for
yeah.
historically for me. Yeah, nightmare.
then-
It's looking good. I like how you're. And the next part is this, kind of what you're doing here.
Yeah,
Blue,
so-
it's looking awesome.
Like personally,
What is this?
I love render clouds for vector work.
Oh right, yeah.
Because even if you just set it on a, just one sec, where's my transparencies?
I did like all those patterns you were using in Illustrator, all the dots and stuff.
Do you want me to jump back to that?
No, you can do
Or
it.
make a-
I
make a
want
custom
to. I want to
pattern.
I want to know what you're doing here.
Oh, here we go.
Because I would usually
I'd love
select
my
this
way.
and be like, what am I going to use this for?
So even like your overlay settings.
Yeah, see how he did that? See how
or
it's
like
like
put
when
in your burn.
'cause
Like
it's like-
definitely go through all your transparency settings.
it's so critical, and sometimes I almost don't want to look because it's so jarring to look at some of those sort of things you're
Some
about
of them
to.
are really.
And it's like, oh my god, that's so scary! Don't even show me. It's like you just instantly got to go through.
But
So
so like
those-
that and just like.
Nice.
Can you reorder
Clipping
this
mask
list? Does it always have to be in that order? Because so many of those are repetitive. Like I want it to be more like I want to be able to cycle through layer styles instead of only being able to get to them from this drop down.
You can, if you hold on Shift plus and minus. Oops, sorry.
Shift plus and
sorry,
minus
okay.
does what?
Will toggle down the list.
Oh,
Oh,
that's
yeah,
the
that's cool, that's
toggling. Okay, so that does solve that problem.
Or you can do Shift Option O. Will
Can
give
you delete some of them out
overlay.
or reorder them?
No.
Okay.
You could jump to your favorites or just go down the list.
Oh, you could jump to
can't
your
really
favorites.
Yeah.
Oh no, so favorites would be my solution. Okay, so I need to customize.
And when I say favorites, I mean just like Shift Option O is overlay, and then M is multiply.
Yeah.
Oh, so you'd only have the one there. That doesn't totally solve my.
But you're right. You're like
Jumping
there's
in the
some
same
that you.
boat.
Well, just because
You
that's
just
such a
don't
big
use.
part of when you're kind of making abstract work is you are constantly blending things, but you quickly realize that like the names aren't super memorable or meaningful, and that you're just kind of like, oh yeah, the top one's pretty good. Oh wait, the bottom one, you know what I mean? Like in the era of Instagram filters, I just feel like I want more control over those blending kind of tricks, just because that's so important to the work.
I usually just do Shift plus, and then I just toggle through. till
Oh
you,
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
finally
I
do
remember
it.
doing that. I think I get lazy and I do it manually, and it drives me crazy. Okay, if you're doing click, 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 that's still good, but you're still forced to use that order, which is a kind of an arbitrary order of.
But then I end up
things.
using like my favorites. Like, well, that's
But do you remember the names of them though? Like, do you? Sometimes like you got overlay. I remember overlay. The other ones, it's like depending on how often I'm using it, I'm like I refer to those terms, but they're not super meaningful. When you're using them as blending tools, I don't know.
The more you use them, the more you you do have to like get used to your transparency settings because you'll
Can we see that
realize
in a
what they
grid?
really do.
And can we see that in a grid? Like, could you see the same thing with 9 different, like in a grid of 9 at the same time? Because that's what I'm getting at. Is that's how important the blending like drop down is. Like, man, you got to go one at a time. When in reality, I want to very quickly understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know instructors have made those.
Well, because Save for Web would kind of get me back to this kind of grid view that I'm talking about, where I want to see the effects so I can kind of quickly pick. Maybe that would be happening over here.
I like the idea of it.
Just they're so important. Those blending names, I can't remember them. They're just like top one, middle kind of one, and some of them are like duplicates. But mastering that stuff is so important, man. Once you figure out like that, the linear, all these, the blending tricks and all the levels in there is really something cool to master for because so much stuff is layered. You forget how much stuff is layered.
Yeah, you really do. And what I'm doing here is we're just doing a quick adjust colors. So one thing about Illustrator is like you can get quite frustrated because you've got everything grouped up. And then if you need to just do a quick like different tone on something, you can just come in here. So like we're starting with the black pattern, but if you need it to be like a gray, you drop that back. If you want it to be red, drop back those other colors.
Oh, nice. You're in adjust colors.
Yeah, and adjust colors.
Which is also
I love what you're doing here.
well, anytime you're using a bar like that to scroll with options, I feel like is something that always feels good as a designer to see it.
Yeah, the
You
preview,
know,
like preview
it's so
option.
brilliant.
Sure. So then one thing I've accidentally done, which I shouldn't have done, is outlined it. So live text is like absolutely crucial, especially with infographics, because you're gonna have to jump back in so often that I should just undo that.
Yeah, undo
So
is your
now-
friend, and then
yeah.
duplicating things to have as like the extra,
Yeah.
so you don't have to like backtrack is also your
So
friend.
like if I had that live, I'd have to try and remake that all. But now, if I want to do like the 40% and whatnot, I'd be able to do it without like completely redoing it. I'd have to jump through the layers and still do that. But it's much easier than trying to like work your whole way back and replicate it. A lot of the thing that I do is if you want to get behind something, I don't know if it's dangerous, but you just cut it. Just cut it off the top and it keeps it on your paste board, work on the back layer and then just immediately paste it back.
Of course. Oh yeah, cut and paste is what it's all about.
And also
Absolutely.
isolation. Like isolation is your buddy. Like didn't work out on the text, but say you're working on this and you just isolate that, then you know you're not playing with anything else and you can just really be free to move without like getting overly complex with your layers. Like you can really just like target in.
Oh, that's good.
Can we make those gradients not like radial gradients where it's like drop in the center, like manipulate those gradients for me?
Yeah.
Yeah, can you just make it better? Can you just fix it? I can't believe you even picked those gradients. Just
Jump
kidding.
in here. So it's not gonna let me do it. 'Cause
I was thinking.
that's fine.
I'm thinking through that solution of fixing the drop shadow, be a dot pattern.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Live text, drop shadow, dot pattern.
Right.
You
So
could
if you
probably
wanna
do
do
that
that-
in Photoshop.
But remember how he was doing it quickly? He basically just had 2 things that were layered on top. So all he had to do was kind of customize the 2 things. That is, I think, the mindset. It's like less about how do I make that perfect live text thing work and more about making the design work. And in some cases, yeah, you might have 5 layers or, you know what I mean? It's not all about making it one layer because you're not necessarily going to have more than you could handle anyway kind of thing.
Kind of like what we were talking about before. Like say if you're doing a chart and it's like
Oh,
about
awesome.
worms or something. Once you know your tools and you know like what it's capable of, like you can
Yeah.
end up with some.
Or it could be
cool-
coins. It could be like a stack of coins.
Yeah, and the good thing about this blend one is that stays live, doesn't it? So you can
Yeah,
really play with it.
that's
And it
so
gets-
nice. And you can work on the distribution.
Mastering gradients and patterns like is so powerful in the vector kind of design world, right? Because these are the clothes that those shapes that you're making wear. You kind of can't really ignore gradients and patterns. Somebody had commented, a snarky commenter had said, gradients are what a beginner designer does when they have no idea, something like that.
I think it was a quote. It was
Right,
like
it is a quote. No,
Yeah,
and I do agree that you don't want to like misuse them, but I see a lot of like just people don't even do anything. They have a white background, and so
I
you're not
think
even trying.
When someone thinks of a gradient, they're thinking of this.
Right, where they're equally distributed, where there isn't any creative thought onto the distribution of the color.
Yeah, exactly. And you kind of like
Yeah, it's really
do
ugly.
this. There's like that classic one. It's like
Yeah.
graphic designer
It's like
wanted, and
it belongs in like word art in Microsoft
Yeah,
Word
exactly.
or something.
So, like it's pretty hard
But you're
to make.
killing it for your
that look good.
your color combos, like your gut instinct for
Bright
the colors
colors,
you're
yeah.
picking.
I think if anything, like just black is and dark colors, while tempting, just like try and lean towards bright, because like when it's muddy, it's like you very quickly get into something that's hard to see, and when you keep it bright, it's just like it's easy to see. Usually looks quite cool, and just looks great on a screen. Like because when you got something backlit, like unless you got a very expensive screen, like the blacks aren't as rich as what you would really want. So that's why like if you're working with the deeper purples and that, it looks quite good on a screen. So you can like drop that in. So like if your website was like a darker blue or something, it might like look a lot more rich with what content you've got on there. Like if you're backing your art, like say if you had a grid of your art and you've got like a deep rich kind of purple color in the back rather than like a straight black, it'll probably like it'll pop those colors, especially if you're working with bright work.
That's not one.
I'm checking out your.
That one there's one. That one there's one.
Okay. I'm also looking at your work, and your work is very bright on Behance.
Yeah.
too.
So when we were talking about just let loose in your free time when it's not infographics, that's basically
Yeah, let me
my
see.
stuff.
You seem to like gradients. Looking
Yeah.
at this one. Yeah. Yes. Can I just gotta click back to this one.
Should like jump back into charts. It should probably label some stuff up.
Yeah,
and
label some
jump
stuff.
back in.
And,
So again-
maybe add some more kind of layouty.
I think he's
Yeah.
using
I
the
might just
gradient
switch
tool.
it
I
in here.
could be wrong, but that's just a wild guess.
Yeah.
Like-
so
Alright,
if
so
you want,
anyway.
if you want more control over your gradients, yeah, here's a tip. Should we use this one?
Yeah, let's check it out. Okay.
Let's do it. So, a lot of time I'll use a clipping mask. So, we wouldn't like gradient the gradient, but if you clipping mask it, then you can kind of like swish it around a little bit more.
Oh, that's
You can
fun.
also like pretty quickly, like stretch it out and boost it up,
and this to
and
me,
you'll get dimensions in there pretty quickly.
and the way
Wow.
the way this approach is kind of like the way the Adobe tools are built, but you're sort of like doing your manual tool. Something, you know what I mean? Like you're kind of thinking the way the tools would be built, but you're just not letting that stop you to put the thing on top or.
Yeah, so if you do like a gradient on top, a lot of the time it's nice to, even when you're working with a straight transparency, like drop your whites in there, but still just like boost the opaqueness even on just one little bit, and it'll just make your shadows look a little bit more.
Do you like doing the
More
like 1,
realistic.
2, 3, 4, 5, like using the numbers for opacity?
Yeah,
That's a
that is
great
good.
one.
That's good. That kind of like keeps control, so you're not like kind of losing.
But it's also nice to like
Vibe.
do something that's not like not on the screen. You know, you're able to like control stuff invisibly. I always look at that.
exactly. So you can also switch the blending layers, and you just kind of like play around. You wouldn't use a multiply because it would disappear. But if you use an overlay,
Do you want to make
That's
like a chart
fun.
though?
a what?
Like a chart or something that's more
A chart with this? Yeah,
infographic.
yeah. So I could do. So
Well, or something from
the point is that say if you've got this, like you can scatter plot with that. So you would do this. So if you I'll grab some data so that you're not looking at this out
No,
of context.
and don't use
but
that. If you could just start with a new one, if you could actually, I don't want it to, that might force you.
That bowl? Yeah.
And then make sure the background's not white, but something like that. But just do like chart like we were practicing, like with do a bar chart.
A bar chart?
Yeah, just do a bar chart, like but with like 10 things, kind of like what you were starting here. But yeah, just like that, but a new one.
All right, sweet. And we'll stick with this Saved by the Bell vibe.
They like it. Tima likes your work.
Thank you.
Infographic, very structured, and then it gets crazy wild. I think it said that
Exactly,
when
and
when
then
I
you
showed
just
your work.
Take your spark that you got from your crazy wild stuff and just inject it into your infographic. So that's what the difference is between getting bogged down in the whole like infographics thing. Like it is artwork, and that's the approach that we come to it. Like you definitely need that structure. The structure keeps it making sense, which has to happen. And then the art part makes it worth looking at. And so you've got a good combo, something that you can understand and something that looks amazing, and you've got a good infographic.
But also, back to the like templatizing and sort of the master file, sort of like library kind of potential. Like what you can sometimes do as a team of one, or if you're in a rush, is like open up one of these old files that's got like tons of this exploration. Maybe it was your work file rather than the final file or whatever. And then maybe if you're creating some sort of a simple thing, a chart, a typography piece, or whatever, sometimes, or you're just starting your abstract work, sometimes I'll just start by like having a simple element that I'm just like eye-dropping old styles and just kind of hacking my way through utilizing styles already started from my own files, from whatever other you know what I mean? But just using the eyedropper tool to like replicate styles.
Yeah. In about 8 minutes, we're going to review portfolios, but we probably need to wrap. Like you guys have like 8 minutes.
Cool.
Not really, but
Do you want to wrap
Like,
up?
you
We'll
don't-
wrap up with a bit of our portfolio. It's like
yeah.
roll in with a bit of our portfolio review. So
Can we like open up some of your files, sort of thing?
We could, or we could just keep building a bar chart from scratch. Like we could do a graphic from scratch. I was thinking.
It's fun watching your work, by the way. I
Yeah?
didn't-
What files?
I almost,
Yeah, cool.
I almost didn't want to just.
What files do we have on
interrupt.
this that you want to show?
Well, we've got
I'll show the Olympic, or show the
we've got
Oakley
all the stuff
too.
that we've popped open.
That's true. Yeah.
So I think this is a good summary of what we've been going from too, because they're kind of like, so like our
Do you want to make full
our
screen?
work. Yeah. You can run through this too.
No, you go ahead. Yeah.
So from our portfolio stuff, you can see kind of the structure that we came to teach you, like with the first and like the second streams. So this is the same way that we approach basically all of our projects. Sometimes you don't have the time to really and you got to kind of hit the ground running. But the perfect process, if you've got the time, is start out with your sketches, really think about what information you've got. So this one was with Billboard, and it was about which tracks are the best for which exercises. So we had a lot of exploration through the styles. We start out with our wireframes. So wireframe is more like this that you'd see on the right side. So don't be afraid of stick people. Like stick people are the best, because if you're looking at a stick person, you infer no information. Like you're just looking at a person is sitting here. Like if you start
And they
using
are in pretty good
clip arts-
shape.
Yeah, exactly. And they're sweating. So
Well, and then of
They're
course
slim. They're very
and,
slim.
And the sort of not necessarily the double-edged sword, but sort of like the other side of using things like stick figures is oftentimes when you look at other people's work or sort of early stage work in your own work, sometimes you realize that wow, we could just send this out like this. You know what I mean? And sort of you just have to make that call. Do you have enough time? Do you have the skills? But also, wherever you're seeing the stick people, that could be like a photograph that you drop in. You know what I mean? Like, think of just that as a reference. And as Taylor's describing, the whole point is you don't want people to think, oh, I don't like how that person looks, or that smile's weird, or why is she smiling when it should, you just don't want to slow people down. And that's why the Latin text trick is such a classic trick that people are going to think that word's misspelled, or that, why does it say that person's name instead of this other person's name when they should be thinking about the balance?
yeah.
I like
so it's
that.
like
This
that.
is fun too.
It's like that isolation of levels. So you're
Totally.
talking about your sketches. Don't try and skip ahead and start labeling things out with information that you don't have. Just label it with nothing. If you don't have the info, don't put it in. If you don't want to have a man on a bike, don't put a man on a bike clip art in there. Just have a stick figure standing there. Get your base stuff in.
And that was important.
These are
Did you hear what he
fun.
said? He said, instead of putting a bad, half-done illustration in, just use or just draw the outline and write image. You know what I'm saying? Because I think people try too hard to make something that's meant to be done super quickly and just the X. The strategy is like draw the shape of the thing and put an X in it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What's cool about this
fun.
one is here you've got illustrated wireframes, you've got the digital wireframes. This is
So this kind of
Twitter
gets it
fence.
across. So you've got your sketches. This is obviously one of our very advanced sketches. He's amazing. And then we've got the wireframes that we're kind of building from this base concept. And then like wireframes, like these are crude basically. Like you can kind of see what's gonna go on, but like it gets the idea across, and it's like just very obvious on the level that you're at. So like don't try and like have something that's like this wireframe and then put an amazing illustration at the top. So like one thing that we do is you just take a slice. So a good idea for just testing it out is, say like this over here is one of the explorations of how we'd introduce the graphic. We were just talking about how can we have like a nice scene going out and providing some depth at the top of the infographic.
where they're
So-
also thinking about the type in that case, I think.
Exactly,
Too, right? Yeah.
exactly. It's because a lot of like how you set the scene with your top title, like it will filter down. Like you want it to feel like a full graphic. You don't want the title to be out of place. Like don't just put a title that's like Helvetica on nothing, like on a white screen, and then like have beautifully illustrated infographic. Like try and work some elements in there so that, because it's your hook, like if someone immediately reads the top and isn't interested in what the title says, then they're probably not going to read the graphic.
Yeah. I love how dynamic a lot of those are.
And then we also mentioned Vivo in one of the past streams, but this is like one of our interesting projects that we worked very closely with each other, actually, like illustrators and creative direction, because there was just so many nodes to finish. So we actually completed this all as individual sketches and then slowly vectored it out as like a full team. So
Oh, wow.
we had the
Really
style
cool.
guide, but we had probably a team of 5 people all working with the same style direction, and then we all had just sections assigned. So this is a good way if you're a graphic design team or you've got friends that work in a similar style, you can like come together to like really make something big, especially if you don't have tons of time on your hands, but you've got like 5 other people that kind of work in the same way you do. You can come together and build it all out and end up with something beautiful in the end. And then Turner, ESPN.
Nice. That's a lot of data.
I think that's everything that we've got up. Would you like to touch on anything else?
No, that's good. Do you want to jump back to the file and just cram in some more?
Yeah.
Yeah, show us.
We've got 1 minute
Make
40.
some more cool graphics.
And just be doing with charts.
You're
though.
just
But
good
do,
at
do
it.
the bar chart like a vertical bar chart. Don't do the like.
You don't want that one?
I want to do like a vertical, a big. But do like 10 column
Okay.
vertical. With,
Entertain us with visuals.
with tubular.
So this is a good way to get your, if you're working in increments, there's a good way to just get your bar charts done. So you can very easily delete out what you don't want.
Oh, that's cool.
Sometimes that's good. The other way I like to do it is if they're all just like lines. You know, sometimes if you're just trying to like kind of make a fake looking chart for the style's sake, you'll select a couple, kind of move them over. You know what I mean? Like.
Exactly.
But this is also a decent approach, especially
Yeah.
if it's a flat color. Of course, that becomes a nightmare because you got to flatten each one of those if you wanted to like do stuff with it.
It's all flat. So
Oh, is it all flat?
yeah.
Oh,
You
it
just
is.
flat-
It
you
is
just
for flat.
flatten it. You
If it
flatten
wasn't flat
afterwards.
though, right?
It's
But
just
make
if
it
you're
vertical. Make
yeah
it vertical though.
vertical. Yeah. Flip that over. And then if you're working, obviously think about your increments. If you're going to have a chart that's all 10%ers, like just build yourself out a 10-part bar with 10 sections.
Make a couple that are really small so that they're not all looking like skyscrapers. Sweet.
Looking good. That is
And throw it on.
their stock's doing
color.
pretty well. It's been dramatic for a bit.
Well, then what you didn't notice is that the next month is so small that you can't see it.
Oh no. There you
That is
go,
not
picking
good color.
a not black. That it works.
So add some data in there.
Spend some time making some gradients though, since we're in such a rush, so they can see some beautiful stuff on the
Oh
screen.
yeah, we're basically finished, aren't we? Yeah.
But dropping some gnarly. There you go. So look how gnarly that. Just like two, but then fix.
Yeah,
the gradient.
definitely don't be
So it's floating.
afraid of gradients.
You can do the gradients.
I really love radial gradients.
That's true.
Linear.
I like linear gradients better than the radial. Radial sometimes drives me crazy because it's like I can see where it's coming. Whereas this feels like it's like a shadow, the awesome sun, the gnarly sun. That's so cool.
This is another point where, so like if you need to be like if your gradient itself is related to like the data point and you want it to be more even, then a lot of the time we'll clip that in.
There you go.
And then you can multiply that across and shift that around a little bit more. And sometimes it's just a bit more flexible than trying to actually move your points around.
Nice. Yeah, so you're using some clipping masks.
Clipping masks are really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Really good. Oh, another tool is I'll just jump into a weird tool just because
What's
it
interesting is
looks
like
amazing.
clipping masks, colors, all this stuff is the same in Photoshop as it is Illustrator.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean,
all of
done
it.
in a slightly different way, but basically you're doing the same thing.
Totally.
Awesome.
And just when we're thinking about Illustrator versus Photoshop for this kind of work, man, we use Illustrator. I personally am always pushing to use Illustrator, but generally I find we use Illustrator like almost.
Yeah,
most
but
of the
without a
time.
doubt, if you use
I love Illustrator.
if you use Photoshop at the end, like say like this basic, like say you might look at some gradient work and you think, oh, it's coming off like a little bit plain. Look, I'll just finish this up and hopefully I get.
Oh, I love it.
to
But it's
show
almost
you.
like you want to make the
So you
gradient
grab
in
that.
Illustrator and then control it as an image,
Yeah, but then you just
And-
paste it in as your smart object.
But another good example, because remember we're always doing stuff where it's like a real kind of a textured gradient that you actually can't really get in Illustrator. Of course you can if you know what you're doing, because
Yeah,
you
you
just
can get a
skin
little
as
bit of
a.
noise in there.
But getting that noise in Photoshop, like that is where we always go back to Photoshop. 20% of the time we're always using these sort of artifacts. We're trying to get the artifacts, that kind of stuff. It feels more authentic.
Boom. Love it.
So
All
that's
right.
the kind of thing where you'll see.
You guys are masters. Loving it. Fantastic. Well, we're going to go ahead and I guess we're going to hop in with the portfolio shuttle. I think that's the plan. Thank you for submitting reviews. We're going to do a portfolio reviews now on Behance.
Thank you, Claire.
All right, we're back. We're rolling
Hello.
days. What? Whoa, that's right. We're in the Behance, I don't know, shuttle, spacecraft, floating.
I can't breathe.
Floating
There's no
in space.
oxygen.
Is this thing on? All right, I'm gonna see since it is breathable. We had to
I'm
we
gonna
had to
bow
fly out
out
into
as it is.
space to be able to capture all the glory of these two portfolios we're reviewing. The last of the day. Actually, the last reviews we're having for May. I don't even know if you guys are doing portfolio reviews next week. But let's dive into this. You can see Jer Rodriguez is one of the portfolios we're going to review. So you guys can kind of look at my screen. If
Look
you
at this
don't
big
mind.
trackpad.
Oh,
Look how big this trackpad is.
That's
We
amazing.
That's
we-
incredible.
We could each have a little corner of it. So, J.R. Rodriguez from Bogota, Colombia. Fantastic. Let's just kind of scroll down and get a little glimpse of him. Illustrator and junior programmer.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Good combo.
You could always add a little bit more info. Like, let us know. Like, what are you trying to do? You just showing off your work? You interested in getting work? I really don't know.
Can I comment on your Hotmail address, if I may? So you are in Colombia, but if you want to work with clients that are in America, one of the things that I have noticed is when we have discussions with sort of executive type people, the kind of people that might hire you, is Hotmail addresses and sort of like what you've got there with JIR337, like a professional email address is, I think, an important thing for us to talk about. So like, it's kind of Gmail or your own domain name these days, I think. But the domain name costs $10, bro. So grab it, use Gmail with just that. You don't even need to have your own domain. You should, of course, have your own domain. I just wanted to bring that up because that's going to help you close more conversation. You know what I mean? People are going to want to talk to you more because you've got a professional email. That is actually really important. Email footers are also really important.
So we have probably about 8 minutes
All right,
per portfolio, 8 to 10. But we could pick a couple out of here and just whatever you guys want to do.
Let's go.
Yeah, let's dive in. Is he a cowboy? Para todos aquellos. I don't even know. I'm not doing no Spanish. Great.
I know zero Spanish.
This is great.
That is
I like
great.
this.
Oh,
This
I
is
love
vector
it.
Like
work.
you notice how it's on that.
I do.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah,
beautiful.
vector
that's
work.
Yeah,
perfect.
lovely.
It's nice.
I love it's all one nice unit. We're gonna appreciate it. Boom. No comments. We just think it's fantastic.
Well,
You
lots
could
of
just-
comments, but
So,
sorry.
can I jump in?
Please, Jeff.
Yeah.
What I did before is if you jump and grab this, throw it in Photoshop, put like a very slight grain, and maybe do like that difference clouds, the difference clouds effect is just like a layer on top, get like a flat color, put different clouds on, and just do like some kind of very slight multiply. It'll just give your flat colors more dimension in them. So like in the jacket and just throughout the sky. Because it's like a large area of straight fade, like that's why some people get afraid of gradients and that kind of thing. But it'll just really mix it up. Like it'll look more realistic. Like
little
it'll just have
more-
a bit more
More
depth
character and depth
Yeah.
to the.
to it. Yeah,
Okay,
exactly.
good. I like it. It's fantastic Illustrator. This is so good.
Yeah, the face is great. I mean,
The face is really great.
We'll try to kind of dive into.
it's a very different style.
Very, very different.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah, cool.
It's cool.
Look at that. Oh, I love it.
Illustrated?
I love it that he did this. I love how he crops this in.
Sure.
I just think that's really cool.
And man, we've seen so much of on Behance. There's almost a style with, and these people like templatize how they show the work, especially with the interactive work.
Yeah.
Super fun.
The Behance design style is very important. Yeah, these are great. Yeah,
Yeah, so good.
So, and that's
Appreciate-
vector brushwork.
definitely vector brush.
That's so good.
Cool.
Annie, we'll dive into another one.
I like this one. Can I look at
I don't know if
this one?
he's Jer.
Can I look at this one?
Okay.
Drop acid.
Drop acid. Okay,
Acid
I
house.
like
Acid
this.
House. Was that for that competition, maybe?
Ooh,
I
inspired.
knew those.
I like this part. Inspired by the '90s graphic rave Acid House. Like providing
Yeah.
some context is really helpful here.
I think there was a competition. I've seen a lot of this Acid House stuff pop up through just searches. I think there was a competition for Acid House posters.
Scroll up.
That's my
is that
kind of
it?
palette. That's,
Is that it?
that's,
Yeah, it's
that's
just-
what
it's just
I
this
would.
one.
I'd buy that. And
Okay.
paint
I
it.
love it. You'd buy this?
Yeah.
Sold.
I'd buy that. Look at the eyes.
fantastic.
It's great. Really
Yes.
good depth in there. The eyes aren't lost. Like your eyes are obviously an amazing focal point with illustrations. The all party is like probably just like
Very subtle. I
just
love how
subtle, and
subtle.
it doesn't need to be the most important part.
I love that it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Agreed.
So
It's okay. The wolf. What's the first one? The last one.
All right, we'll go
we're
to
going
the
somewhere else, I'm
top.
sorry.
No, we'll go
Yeah.
here. Yeah, definitely. I think
I
this
love that.
is-
Yeah, I love how
Reinforcing
picking
the
those parts
process.
out.
But
Yeah.
reinforcing the process is something that we've found very successful. Yeah, that's
Really good.
beautiful. It's brilliant.
Ooh, some
Yeah.
fancy decks.
I love looking at the new stuff, looking at the old
Decks,
stuff, and looking
just
at
like
the
we
new
were
stuff.
saying, like it brings me no greater joy than to drop something I've designed like on a hoodie graphic. It also the second most enjoyable thing is dropping it onto a skateboard template. I'm gonna assume that wasn't printed like that. That is a digital mock-up, which I think is so powerful. You would look at that and say, "Man, he printed 3 skateboards."
Yeah.
The skateboards are so perfully similar,
This is really
Just
fun.
gonna
You can
guess that
see
was
all
me.
the detail and amount of work
brilliant.
that he
It's awesome.
put into it.
and it's like a faux when you do like
a woodcut?
like a woodcut. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's brilliant.
I'd also say if you're a coder and you're working with any kind of 3D, like template yourself like a spinning skateboard or something, and then obviously like any layout that you do that's vertical, like you can just plop it into the same thing, and then like export yourself some like GIFs. Like you could have like some movement in there. I think movement's like a really big
Super
thing with
key.
these.
Oh man, if you think back about, go back to this character if you could for me real quick. So the like country guy.
Yeah.
So when I see this character, like one of the key things that I love about especially vector illustrations, is that when you're created this like world that could be like a side-scrolling animated thing, it could be a video game setting. Like to me, that is like a bar that you're constantly trying to reach. Is you have created a space digitally that could be a space where a character is moving, an animation is happening. You've thought about a world, a style, and it's cool. But I would love to see this passed off to an animator and it moving.
Yeah.
And you could have, as a designer, you think to yourself, wow, am I really going to pay some random person to help me? Am I going to pull in my friend? Am I doing this just for the portfolio? Yeah, sometimes that will help you. If you might want to do animation work, but you think, oh, I couldn't get the jobs. But this would be an example where you think, man, this is a beautiful thing. I could have an animator work for half a day and take this illustration from this designer and then create something that he could. Of course, that might not be the right one, but stuff like that thinking, animate your best stuff, pull in other people to collaborate. You don't need to do everything.
Yeah. And After Effects obviously makes it very easy for yourself. So if you're doing any kind of like vector character work, just drop it in, get Puppet Tool,
You can also
get
do
yourself some
templates
arms
where it looks
moving.
like
Could
it's
just do a
printed.
walk cycle.
Oh yeah.
It's really easy. Even with portrait work, like I've seen people put portrait work together and the eyes blink every now and then.
Oh,
And,
that'd
like,
be good. Or
that's
or
it.
right here on the table,
Exactly.
the candle
like
could flicker.
flicker the candle. You'd literally just Puppet Tool
Yeah.
and like just do like a varying glow, which, man, 5 minutes and you'll have it, export it, and like you've just brought so much more to all that work that you've put in.
You know, almost like a master of really laying out these projects, because he's taking clips
Really
and
great
he's
work.
tried different things, and then he shows them printed, shows them on skateboards. So I like exploiting the design throughout the entire.
So for this
Yeah.
piece, I wanted
project.
to reference an art group out of New York City that I love called Faile, Faile. Like this style absolutely has elements of the Faile. So Faile is an art group. They're a bunch of it's like 5 of these people from New York. They were doing wheat paste posters, right? And they're graphic designers they got arrested, they got thrown in jail, they decided to only do gallery work. You should look at Faile's collection of work, not only because their style is kind of in this family, because they've had great success with doing like official projects where they make statues and they make blankets. Like they've taken this style and productized it. Faile, Faile.
And this could be exploited in many different ways, because you could see this design all over the place.
Well, when I was
Everywhere.
hacking around as a vector
this should
designer,
be on Threadless and everywhere else.
Well, right, and whenever you're doing vector designs like in one color, I feel like that's such a because you can take a piece like this and then drop it on other colors, add more stuff to it. But working in black and white is a really fun place.
Super strong.
Yeah.
You're
So-
fantastic.
When you look at Hercules and then you look at just like the
you like
amount
this
of the amount of skill, the skill increase from Hercules, and then going through to that skull with
You're
the,
exactly right.
It's like massive. So it's
Yeah.
almost like
'Cause
scary having your older
we
stuff
did
in
notice
there.
some
is,
things
it is.
here. There's some
Yeah.
problems anatomically with this.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what you're noticing, right?
Well,
Like
it's
the
just
shortness
like,
of this arm. I
it's
get
just
it's
looser.
foreshortened.
It's just looser work. When you look at the
Abstract.
skull and you look at the combination, I think it's like a rooster head. It's just like you can see that like technical skill is just much higher in that project.
Yeah, fantastic. Let's kind of move on to the next one. This I can't say enough of nice things.
Maybe
We'll
some
go on to the.
design stuff?
We do have to get on to the next.
Oh, let's do it.
You guys good?
Yeah.
So again, everybody give Jared Rodriguez a round of applause. You're so good. I want to
Love
be
it.
you.
Very cool.
I want to grow up to be you someday. Henrice Kass from Lithuania.
Oh, that's
Awesome.
cool.
Well, it's probably really late. I don't know if they're.
I love that
in
you do all those
chat.
things.
Following you.
I used to do all those things. I do all those
Designer, advertising, print, UX, UI. You better provide me
things. I
some.
love it.
Freelance
Everything.
creative art worker,
Everything.
designer, advertising, animation, print, UX, UI.
Is advertising still a thing? Is that still a word we use? I don't know. Advertising sounds kind of corny.
Members-
Perhaps.
Unless you work in an advertising agency, I guess. You'd probably
Look at this
apply.
though.
Maybe.
Look at all this work.
There's a lot of So within the
is good.
categorization,
It's okay.
is there not? Because there seems to be a lot of 3D work, but 3D is not listed on his special.
Oh, this is beautiful.
specialties.
I mean,
And
this is gorgeous.
this is a case where I first look over here and make sure that
Art direction, graphic design, and illustration. So you'd probably the more accurate category would probably be 3D.
And motion.
So that people are seeing your work when they want to see 3D work, I'd say. Does that?
Yeah.
I would also use a word like vector, because to me, when I search for illustration, I often use a term like vector. You know what I mean? Like, and that's an underused.
Yeah, he's used Blender 3D. So yeah, I think there needs to be 3D in the
Oh,
title.
definitely 3D in the title. Definitely. Or, sorry, not in the title, but in the tags for sure. Maybe not in the title. The
Yeah,
title
it looks
for
like
sure.
he has it there, but like I don't know if he was the art director
No,
for
that's
a
just the
3D
tool.
artist.
It just says Blender 3D.
That's what I was thinking.
Well, 36 Days of Type is usually a self, like a self-motivated
This
thing
is
where
great.
you do it for yourself.
This last little
Brilliant.
piece, seeing
Yeah.
everything.
And just my feedback, if I was just giving you some feedback, I think the ones that are most successful here are the ones that have the bright colored backgrounds. I think the dark ones are just a different approach, but like if they all had really bright backgrounds, yeah, it's beautiful. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, this
just like
alone.
a bright color, a little bit of like an
So
ambient
good.
occlusion or something on there, just to like take off the kind of like hard shadows and hard.
So
What else we
good.
got?
You are so good. Let's just go to this aerodynamic one.
Ambient occlusion. I think.
Oh, you're killing me. It's so nice.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
man,
click
definitely.
into this.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Definitely get 3D in there. Like
Get
your
3D
3D
in
work
there.
is incredible.
Sweet. Yeah, looks like it would too.
That's great work.
Again, with the
Good.
motion, like a guy like this, you could take some money that you've got. You're thinking, how can I make more money? How can I be more versatile? Oh, he already does animate. You already do your own animation. But maybe you're pulling in somebody else to fund a small short film.
Yeah,
that
or
is
even just the propeller.
or even just a propeller.
Yeah.
But fund your own stuff just for the sake of building out your portfolio.
I think one thing I would say is that I think the smoke background is almost. Do you want to jump back to the plane?
Where's mine?
Yeah. Let's get out of this. Go to the.
Oh, it's mine. Yeah.
Is that when you've put something together like this, you've got so much narrative within a scene, but the background doesn't actually like lend anything to it. So you could have a
background's not
very
working.
simple duplication of this character and make it like a bad character and it's like he's getting chased away, or link up these clouds so it's less like dark clouds in the sky and have it more coming from the plane or something, so that I don't know, because you could have it curling, like out of the tail, and then use
wow.
that curl coming around so that you've got something where like it's reinforcing that focal point
And
of
more
your plane in the
abstract,
middle.
because it's like a realistic setting
Yeah.
with this made-up character. And the problem I have with this is the problem. This is DreamWorks' problem. Like DreamWorks versus the classic Disney approach, which was a bit more abstract. Like everything now is so proportional and real, and the sky is rendered by like a sky program, and the grass is like a grass program. And it's like, yeah, as Taylor's describing with these kind of what I would just call as like an abstract choice. But anyway, this is the background. It's the sky that isn't working here.
Yeah,
The
it's
clouds
like-
are okay, but the sky.
Yeah.
Sounds like he's getting into 3D illustration, moving in towards 3D.
Do it, man, and do games. Design games.
Yeah, games. Definitely if you code too. If you code.
Well, if you want to
can
make
do
money,
3D,
do you want to be
amazing.
starving artist? Do illustrations. You want to be rich? Make video games.
I like that you're putting in
Like Fortnite.
like examples of the types of work maybe that you want to get, which is cool.
Oh, absolutely.
Like
Yeah.
that's why he did that,
Exactly.
36 days of type.
So he wants to make
You know?
monster. He wants to make monsters like this.
Yeah, who doesn't want to make monsters?
It's very DreamWorks, man. This is like
love it.
Monsters Inc. Yeah, it's cool. It's beautiful.
So I'd
Character
say
design, digital art. Sorry.
Background was weak
just
there
brown.
too, though.
But, like
The
everything
background's probably
there,
weak too. But it's cool.
everything there's great. It's just the brown.
Yeah.
Just really doesn't pop out all
It's-
the work that you've done.
I would rather it was on a white background if you're not going to make any, you know what I mean? Like, because it is
Yeah.
like dark on dark was a bad choice, but brown, whatever this color
So maybe
is
like
weird.
I don't know. Would you say like lighting and color kind
No,
of?
either make a choice, make a choice, or use whites as a nondescript, something like that. I don't,
I'd
you
say
know what I
like
mean?
develop something, or because white actually looks quite good. Like if you treat it like you're doing food photography and you're just going to be taking something like in a full white sheet and you've just got like the natural ambient light casting a shadow, white can look quite good. And then also with 3D, you've got all the new, like even Facebook's doing it. You can have the interactive thing where you just drop your model in there. It might not render at the full, like if you're using the really high settings like through 3ds Max or something, but it lets people kind of like play with it and they can see the full rotation. So if you're gonna put all this effort in, like just drop it even in the end. You can have like just the polygon view of your model and just let people play with it. They can see all the effort that's gone in there, because like obviously a lot of time goes into this.
So Henrice, you're the man. I love a bunch of things about this. Okay, so first thing I want to acknowledge is I have looked at a lot of Behance pages. Here he has at the top. He says, done in 2 days. Man, that is really important information.
Yeah.
Because some of the other work you might look at, man, the kid might have worked on it for like 2 years. His friend did all the hard work. So I love that. Very smart. When I'm looking at this, of course, this is an animation. I know we didn't get a chance to look at the animation, but like I love these colors and these shapes on black. It feels very futuristic. Comcast did a brilliant campaign. I'm always going back to Comcastic. Anyway, it was just some of this. But I would love if it had that sort of 80s pattern kind of coming out of the back. It looks like that was the idea. Love it. This is brilliant. Love the texture on this.
This is geared toward people like somebody that would hire this person for 3D, because all these specs are like the things that they would care about.
Oh, he clearly has worked in a
and
professional.
like the modeling. Like I want to do some modeling. Here's how I've modeled.
He
this.
clearly has a full-time job doing. This is out of a studio, I would assume, because you would have had to have learned how to have done
It
this.
looks really good. I think one thing I'd say is with characters and things like this, think about the think of it like a story or like how things interact. So if you've got a helmet on a llama type character, like think about if you saw a llama wearing a helmet, like puff its fur out and like get that interaction of like the puffy fur, like give it like a nice kind of like round bubbly look if you're going for like cartoony, and it just like adds that element of like more character to it, so it's like its helmet's like really stuck on like its furry head or something.
So
like,
one bit of feedback that I got to start with here. So like when I just, because we spend millions of dollars on freelancers in a year. I think a lot about who we're hiring. I look at a lot of Behance pages. When I looked at this initially, I was not excited about what I was going to see. But when I dug in, this is incredible work. One of the things that threw me off, your earlier work, especially the layout work, anything with like deep typography, like I think what I used to do because you end up with all this work and then you don't necessarily have a lot of like layout work, which is what your clients might be calling you for or whatever. So you feel like I got to throw in some web stuff, I got to throw in some layout stuff. But the thumbnail images you chose here were a major turnoff. And when I clicked on like this landing page, it's like, but you didn't take any time to think about what the crop of that thumbnail would be, more to sort of explain what happened here, because the layout's like okay, but it's kind of like a templatized layout. I don't really know what I'm looking at, but it takes away from your other brilliant work. And to me, it's kind of like an album, so you can get away with having an album with like a bunch of great songs and a bunch of bad songs, but you want the whole thing to be like just the hit songs, perhaps. You don't want to have any bad songs on the album or things that are embarrassing when you kind of look up close. I am constantly editing and deleting. It feels good when you delete stuff out. This is brilliant.
I'd say if the when you're looking at it, if the top part is like interest, so like even like a crop of this, I just like bright colors. But
Yeah, you do.
a crop of this, like
get
that
it.
front half, like you'd be like, oh, what's that?
Exactly.
Whereas like this.
And then show them what the crop is, or show them what the thumbnail. The thumbnail is of this.
Is this. So
Ooh.
you wouldn't consume that at a thumbnail size. That's going to be,
And
like,
this-
that's like a call to action.
And
for
in
a website.
isolation, this isn't horrible, but when I looked at it, it's like there's so many forgettable portfolios that you don't want to allow your work to get pushed in this weird corner where it's like obscured or something. You want to
basically-
control how people are seeing your
Use a-
selfie. This is a selfie of the piece.
Just use a thumbnail how a thumbnail's meant to be used. Like don't try and show a work that's meant to be like a hero image for your website with tons of info on it in your thumbnail, because
It should be simple.
yeah,
It should be an
just like,
icon.
just crop, like an icon.
And if you're using typography in your, sorry to interject, if you're using typography in your thumbnail like it's got here, like, oh my goodness, banners, animation, like, whoa, what? That's the thumbnail. Well, Chris, he would have done this when he was younger or something.
Yeah.
But like that's again,
That's all. That's
If
bad,
you're not,
bad
and
choice.
if you're not going for that type of work, just get it out of there. Like you could
Exactly.
almost safely take off the last 2 rows.
But
Maybe.
But here's the problem where
I don't
I
know.
think that would be one solution. But if you're trying to keep that work because it's you've only got a couple website projects, you want to sell something, there are reasons why that might have shuffled like that. The real point is think more, as you've done with these other projects, about the thumbnail. Treat the thumbnail as important as the copywriting.
It's good stuff. All right, guys. That's about it.
Oh, just this, yeah, cool.
Thank you so much, Henris. You are awesome. And we thank you as well. Jer Rodriguez reviewed a couple portfolios. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having us.
JESS3. Good to have you guys
Thank you,
here.
everyone.
Yeah, thanks everyone. It's
Thanks,
great to meet you
everybody.
guys.
Thanks for
Watch the
having us.
replays too. Join us next week as well.
We'll follow you guys. You guys are awesome.